everybody, and welcome to episode number 19 of Third Man In, brought to you by Head Check Health. I'm Mike Hickey, along with...
It's Charles.
And...
It's TR.
I was going to go back and do the Terry first thing like we did a couple weeks ago, but he was busy getting an Instagram story for you all, so you guys can see how messy my basement is. And we can get right into the episode. This is a fun one. We got I guess we're quite excited to chat to coming up, but just because we're still waiting on the phone number at this point, I'm not going to even say out loud who it is, just in case we need to pull the parachute at the last
second.
Yeah, don't want to risk that one happening.
Send him social media messages back and forth, and then I realized I didn't have his number.
Which is
just hoping, just waiting for the phone to ring. Yeah.
As a big '80s pro wrestling guy, I'm really into just having a mystery guess and the photo being the question mark man.
I like it. I like it. And while we're actually waiting to see if we can get some word from this guy, let's have a quick listen to a message from our sponsor, who's good enough to bring you this show every week. Head Check Health.
Concussions are serious business. Concussions and post-concussion syndrome had a huge effect on my career. Whether you're a player, a concerned parent, a coach, a risk manager, or an executive, they're a major area of concern. Head Check Health has developed software and services that improve the way concussions are assessed, tracked, and managed at all levels of sport. Their goal is to create a safer environment of play by giving better tools to the individuals responsible for documenting and assessing concussions and providing better data to administrators to make real health and safety improvements. Head Check currently works with organizations across the country like the Canadian Junior Hockey League, BC Hockey, Rugby Ontario, the Western Lacrosse Association, and more to advance their concussion management practices. If you're interested in learning more how Head Check can help your team or organization, please visit headcheckhealth.com or email info@headcheckhealth.com. That's headcheckhealth.com or info@headcheckhealth.com, and tell them TR sent you.
All right, so now that we got that housekeeping out of the way, how's everybody doing? Everyone's doing good?
Mike, how are you doing?
I'm doing...
Big day. Big day.
As we're recording this, I'm wearing my Bruins sweater.
Yeah.
Sitting in the basement, anxious for game one to start. It's been a very long time since I saw some Bruins hockey.
11 days.
It's nuts, man.
Unbelievable.
This is crazy. 11 days between...
It goes so long, too, every year. I don't know. I just think it goes way too fucking long, man. Hockey into June. Come on. Yep. Yeah, and the worst is that if you don't win, you get no Stanley Cup ring. You play into June, and then you got to go to camp again in a month, for fuck's sakes. Shit, man. That's hard on the body. Think of the people now that have been off for three and a half months.
Oh, yeah. Right? I know. There have been some teams that have been off for quite some time, like almost as fucking long as the Bruins have at this point. But what's fucked is, like, I mean, even St. Louis has been off since Tuesday. It's been almost a week for them.
Yeah. When I'm saying... Think of the teams that have been off for a couple months or, 2 or 3 months. I'm saying, like, the difference, like, because you need some rest.
Oh, yeah.
And some guys get to, that's the good part, I guess, of being on a shitty team is that you get such a big rest. But anyway, keep going. I'd cut you off.
You get to travel. You get to have fun. I know these guys, like, I see their training regimens. They usually start up, like, in July. Like, you go on some of the guys' Instagram, they're fucking throwing tractor tires around by late July. You win the cup, you're winning it in late June. You got 3 weeks of a bender at least. You figured? If you're the Capitals,
nowadays
you've got
people
3
do that
months.
now. If you look now, it's for example in town here, Ryan Power. I'll plug his school and Mark Lee. There's a bunch. I mean, there's people that do summer camps like Wally Bray and whatnot, but there's a lot of people training the kids. I do it myself for the odd guy that goes to the queue. Will call me and we'll do lessons at 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm already at least a month into some guys. So, like, now it's definitely, like I said, I think that's too much. But if they want it, I'll help them out. And I get it that nowadays, if everybody's doing it, you kind of feel like you got to keep up with the Joneses. So I'm against the philosophy, but I understand why people often do train as much.
Yeah.
I probably would now. I'm thankful. I keep plugging other sports. Who knows if I could have excelled at baseball and soccer in today's world trying to be an exceptional athlete. I mean, I don't know. I'm glad for the era that the opportunities brought us, but, anyway, there's people now that take like a week off and that's it. And if you fucking make the Stanley Cup final, like, when are they going to be done? In mid-June?
I think at this point, the 10 days between the Eastern Conference final and the Stanley Cup final is the longest break the Bruins are going to have between now and training camp. The 11 fucking days since they beat the Hurricanes, like, there might not get that much on the other side, and then training camp starts again.
I'm wondering, and obviously none of them can bring it up because you'd be fined into oblivion. But I wonder if the players on the Bruins feel the same way as us, especially how they flattened the team.
Even the Blues. even the Blues. That game again. That series ended on Tuesday.
Yeah.
It's still been 6 days.
Yeah, that's bad planning.
I get the idea of if that had gone to 7 days and it had gone to Thursday, you would want to give them a break so that if they had gone to Thursday, starting on Monday is kind of a fair turnaround. And they were trying to schedule everything in advance. One team was locked down, so they were trying to do that at that point. And I think there was a thing in play where if the Western Conference had been 1 in 5 games, it would have triggered a Saturday start, but going over 5 games is what pushed it to tonight. I think that's what happened.
Pushed it out by like 9 days.
Well, 2 days. 2 days. It's like it would if they had won, if they had finished it up on Saturday night of last week, the final would have started Saturday night this week to give.
No matter
but
what,
it's still just
during the course of the season, there's ways to fucking do this. I don't know how long the All-Star break was or when it started, but I'd almost, if I was a player, like, I want this time to myself. I'd rather start the fucking regular season in September if I had to.
I'm
like,
a high advocate of starting hockey on October 1st every year.
But the other thing
every year. I don't like the fact that you got, okay, the cup is going to get lifted 2 or 3 nights later, if that's your thing, the awards are going to be on. 2 or 3 nights after that, it's going to be the draft. Then it's free, and
then you get the free agency stuff.
And I understand the NHL probably doesn't want us forgetting about the NHL, but guys, give us 11 days where you don't have to think about it.
I mean, the Bruins just got that.
But I'll tell you this, hockey, I think, is way too long of a regular season schedule anyway. I really, really do. It's way, way too long. If for physicality alone and hard on the body, and there are other reasons. But it's 8 or 10 exhibition games as well. Like, you could easily chop those into, start earlier, and you wouldn't have to change the schedule. I don't get it. Like, I think the schedule, I'm not going to say cut in half, but like Europe, it's just a lot easier on the body. Somewhere around 50 games. It'll never happen.
64.
You could, something like that.
64 would be a huge. However, I think an owner, like one of the 30 owners, is going to come in and just put a fucking pillowcase over our heads.
Exactly.
Drag us away.
But and so that won't happen. So fuck me. You know what? Like, take some of those exhibition dates away. Jesus, it's so hard on the body. And then you make the playoffs. You're playing over 100 professional hockey games a year. It's way too much.
And again, like, one of the things that I look at is, like, they talk about, obviously with the Bruins Blues being the final, you're seeing a lot of the Bobby Orr goal, the flying goal that won, but the anniversary of that came up. That goal was scored on, like, I think it was like May 10th.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That was, or it might have even been earlier. It might have been the 2nd. But I remember, like,
I think it was earlier.
It was like May 2nd or something was the anniversary of that happening. Yeah. And that was the cup clinching goal, and it was early May.
You only had to win 8 games to win the cup then.
But I mean, so the idea that it goes this long now and that we're into May 27th is the first game of the cup final. I remember.
First game. Yeah.
I remember a couple years ago.
Cup was May 2nd.
The year that the year that Pittsburgh beat San Jose. I remember I went to LA for a trip. I was there for like 10 days or some shit, and the day I was flying back, which was like fucking June 16th, 17th, something like that. Game 6 happened and Pittsburgh won while I was in the air.
I think there was one
like it was fucking mid, like we're into the point where that's mid-June, but it's the second part of mid, like it's after the 15th, like it's fucking nuts.
I think the latest was actually in the 20s. I think one cup, I don't know if it was Vancouver, I think it was the 21st.
I think it might be, I don't know if it was a lockout year, could have contributed, but it was. No, it definitely went, but I remember it was in my lifetime, like after I was drafted. I don't know when, but I remember it being a big deal that it went into June. So it only went to late May until fairly recently, let's say 20 years. I'm putting a ballpark out, but something like that. And now you're right. I remember a few years ago, I don't know exactly when it is, but I'd put my bottom dollar on June 20th, something like that. It was like, but you're into the end of June, for fuck's sakes, man.
But speaking of ballpark, that's another thing. When was the last time the fucking October Classic was played in October? World Series is November every fucking year now?
Yeah.
I can't tell you the last time, between Mr. October and it being called the October Classic, all this stuff that's historically been tied to the fact that the World Series gets played in October, and for the last 15 years at least, I think every one of them's been in November.
That's a good point. The only thing that stays the same is the Super Bowl.
Fuck.
Yeah. They're big on staying the same in that league.
Yeah, about a bunch of stuff.
I'm going to ask a question here now, and it might be a bit tinfoil hatty, but do you think the NHL had this break because they were a little scared of the Raptors game going to 7? The Raptors series?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, that's the way I saw it. And there's a lot of overlap in the finals now with the games and the Raptors. I think there's two 2 games over?
I don't know. There's a point where they've got like a 3, like after all this, there's still a point where there's like a 3-day break for no fucking reason in the middle of it too. Like there's a couple weird things with this schedule that I think is I think you're right. I think it's the NHL going, there's a chance we're going to lose the Canadian market to the Raptors in the finals.
A toe in the water there that they just wanted to pull out, and it backfired, really.
Yeah, because, I mean, can you imagine if the Stanley Cup final had started on Saturday night and the Raptors were playing a clinching game, how many people would be watching the fucking Stanley Cup final in Canada? I mean, 3 of us probably, but...
Maybe, but I got to be honest, I'd at the very least be going back and forth.
Oh, yeah. I'd be following one on, like, Twitter, but, like, you know...
See, the beauty in that is I'd be going to the Duke, and there'd be one screen. And
there you go.
Screen.
That's the way to do it.
That's the move.
The way to do it. Go to the bar where they got it on 2 different screens.
You know what's funny there that none of us brought up? There's a picture-in-picture. No one still does that. Every TV has that. Nobody. It's one of those things that when it came out, I thought everybody was going to be doing it.
But
I thought this is futuristic.
I can tell you the first series
I don't think I can do
picture-in-picture
anymore. I don't think you can do it.
I can.
You
it's
can
on
do
my
it.
TV, but I just don't do it ever.
I think my TV has the setting, but I don't think that the digital box I have set up allows it the same way. I think that's the thing. I don't think I can watch it quite the same way as I used to be able to.
Doesn't even pop into my mind.
Yeah, I never think to do it.
Think of it. I'd rather just go last and go back and forth.
Yeah.
I don't know why. It's just one of those things I thought would really, really take off.
Yeah.
It was so futuristic.
The series
seemed like so crazy. It's like everything looks like the news.
Yeah.
The
series the Leafs swept the Sens. We watched, and it was the first time I saw a huge screen TV picture-in-picture. I was only junior high at the time, and I thought, holy fuck, this is the Jetsons.
Yeah.
Like, this is the Jetsons right here.
Flying cars coming, guys.
Turns out we've forgotten about it. We forgot about it all.
Even as I say it, it makes perfect sense. I just don't want to do it, and I don't do it. I'm taking a stand against it for no reason other than I don't know, just don't want to do it. And now that I haven't done it so long, it can go fuck itself. The whole concept of picture-in-picture.
And the other thing,
fuck you, picture-in-picture.
But the other thing with it too, that's kind of fucked up is the thing about it is like now they just the way that the games are shot, the way everything happens, like. Also, like, where the fuck would I put picture-in-picture? Like, you can usually, because you used to be able to push the button and move it from corner to corner. Yep. If I'm watching a game, between like between the score bug, between whatever, like I don't want to lose any of that screen real estate.
It's funny
to like another like postage stamp of another game. You know,
it's wild that you mentioned that because the way hockey games are broadcast now compared to 15 years ago when picture-in-picture first came out. Drastically different.
Totally.
Holy fuck! It's like they're on. It's like the Bohemian Rhapsody movie with all
you
the
ever
cops.
notice?
They're on steroids.
You know what I love, and kind of off topic, but kind of on, from the presentation to the production of the games. Have you ever noticed some rinks the camera's slightly closer than others? Like if you watch a home game in Calgary, it's a lot more entertaining to me because the camera's slightly. You can see more actions, whereas if it's further back, like in the Bell Center, it's still good, but I don't get as it's not as satisfying to me.
You know what? What's a really good example of this because I actually noticed it last night. I didn't make it to the game last night. The Growlers played game 2. You were there.
Yeah.
But I didn't make it to the game. But I was at the rec room with like my softball team after our game, and they had it on the TV there. And I noticed that because Mile 1's a smaller rink, because of the way it's set up, not only was it closer, but the angle was more direct. So you could see more of the near boards. So like the angle on the near boards was so much smaller, you could actually kind of like you weren't missing as much play along that near wall.
Yeah, I noticed that too. And
it's great. Yeah,
we should point out to people when we say Growlers, it's Newfoundland. Growlers often make not the mistake, but. Most people know we're based in Newfoundland. We're talking about the Newfoundland Growlers, who are now in the final. They're up 2-0 in the Kelly Cup East Coast League or ECHL final. And anyway, the first 2 games were this weekend. It was very vibrant. The place was packed both nights, and there was a lot on the go. The teams got 3 or 4 Newfoundlanders on there. Good buddy of ours, one James Melindy has been on the show, friend of the show.
Yeah.
And Marcus Power and Zach O'Brien, 2 of my real good buddies, ball hockey teammates, and we got Adam Party on the squad.
What a game they had on.
Yeah, man.
Zach O'Brien and Power. What a duo!
They played together in minor
Saturday.
hockey, right?
Holy.
So there's a nice little story there, and we'll have them on sometime. But when the boys were 15 or 16, Zach O'Brien and Marcus Power were talking of. I never really coached them. They used to come and want to play some ball hockey because it is great to keep you in shape, and you're working on all those things. So fast forward to now. In between that, they joined our team. We now play for Newfoundland every summer. We're hosting the Nationals in August. We've gone to the World Championships together. These guys have really they're friends now more than anything. Started out, I won't quite say like students, but, I was almost in that role, like an older teammate to help them kind of thing. But I get my son would say father figure being 42. I didn't want to say that, but,
I was going to say
whatever.
protege. Too.
Yeah.
Protege.
Hopefully that's it.
Go.
No, but the boys are my buddies now. And so anyway, Marcus and Zach both got drafted to different teams in the Q. Zach I think Zach led the Q in goals with 51 year, and he came second in scoring. I believe to Drouin. I could be wrong on that exact, but he was top 3 for sure. And Marcus did the same thing the next year. And both of them took different routes. We talk about pro hockey. Zach went and signed in the American Hockey League on the strength of his junior play. Low-end deal at the time, but he ended up winning the Calder Cup with the Manchester Monarchs. Played with Paul Biznat, amongst other people. But he had a 3 or 4 year career in the A, and then he came back here. Marcus, for those 3 or 4 years, took the school contract because he didn't want his school eligibility to slip away. So he went and became, I believe, an engineer at UPEI. This is his first year out. So now 2 of them who grew up playing minor hockey together and dominating the local scene and getting a 3rd place in Canada, which is huge for our midget team. Huge. Yeah. Now they're playing together again. And I often say to people, I'm like, there's a clear chemistry. That's an example of guys that rise above, like with 2 of them together is better than each one. The sum of their parts, I guess, is much better. And you can see that out there. You can see the boys who grew up together in St. John's playing together, right? It's wild to watch. And you can see, I'll tell you this, there's something to be said for leadership. I've always said it, and I'm not just going to say Melindy here because he's a great leader, but Adam Party, there's one guy on that ice that played in the NHL, and by fuck, if you can't tell every night who it is. Every night you can tell. It's not like he's dominant or anything because he's a big guy. He's got a good shot. He was a stay-at-home D in the NHL. Here he's a bit more. He's on the power play and stuff. He's a bit more mobile. Yeah, definitely mobile is the word. But he's a leader, and he's always talking to the refs. He settled down the guys. Yesterday when there was an injury, we'll get to that in a bit, and it was pretty bad. And you could see Adam Party went over to the bench. And, when someone like that raises his voice, everybody listens. And, because they wanted to freak out.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I mean, that's what you want to do. Someone gets suckered, and, all of a sudden both benches are at each other. Pards is saying, look, we win this game. We're up 2-0 in a final.
And that's what's more important.
Yeah,
at this stage, right?
And it was close at the time. I think it was 1-0, I think, for Toledo.
They tied on the 5-minute major that resulted from that hit. Yeah.
And even a guy like Melindy, he's been in pro hockey a while, but knowing James, his instinct was probably to go fucking run over the guy, and challenge him.
Based on the conversation we had with him, I'd assume that's the case.
So, that was just a little tidbit. I went on there a little bit about the Growlers, but it's a very interesting series. And, for the Newfoundlanders that, go down and you're kind of curious because we support it now because they're in the final, but I don't know how many times this weekend I had to tell that story. A lot of people don't realize the local connections. They know they heard of Adam Party, but the O'Brien Power thing's really intriguing too.
Yeah, but that's a good segue because I know that for somebody, a little mention of the Growlers is their oh baby moment this week.
Oh baby! That would be me. For those without the benefit of sitting directly across of Mike pointing at me.
The beat of you waiting for that to be over and then going, that would be me, really took the momentum out of my little segue there. So thank you for that, you fucking...
Yeah, take a sip.
I'm out of water.
My oh baby moment of the week is definitely Saturday night's overtime winning goal of the Growlers. Terry had mentioned a lot of the stuff what I was going to say. The Growlers on Saturday was the game 1 I saw. They're in the ECHL Kelly Cup Finals. Played a great game. I was lucky enough to bring both my parents to the game. It was my mom's first hockey game, and this is more so what I wanted to talk about.
Wait, her first hockey game?
First hockey game, period.
Wow.
I know. She's not, hockey was always something that our whole family did to more or less give her time and space away from a bunch of lunatics.
Fair enough.
She gets sat in the seat, very excited. The arena is just absolutely really loud.
Yeah.
I'd wish that all of the season's games were this blocked. And
Yeah, like I didn't make it to either, but it looked like the place was fucking
It was
on
fun.
wheels. Yeah.
So after warm up, there's two fellas reluctantly, I guess, each wants to be the last guy off the ice.
Oh, one of these things.
Yeah, one of these things. So I'm sitting down, and my mom picks up on this first hockey game, obviously, but she's like, how come they're not leaving? I said, well, hockey players are superstitious. And she looks over to me with joy and goes, do you think they'll fight? So all I
God
thought,
love her.
yeah, do you think they'll fight? And then I was like, well, probably not now, because that would just cause a melee. Though, James, it has happened.
Yeah.
I said, maybe you'll see a fight. And all she said was, well, I'd like to see a fight.
That's hilarious.
Good
It's the
for her.
finals. Didn't
Good
see it, but I
for
thought, if
her.
I'm going to take an oh baby moment, is my mom asking for a fight in game one of a
And by the
final.
way, no, that's hilarious. I will point out, without getting in dissecting it, just to elaborate on points that I've made throughout the show. There was a guy got hit pretty hard, wasn't it? He's a headshot,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Pretty bad.
Yep.
I'm just saying, as a player, I way rather take a punch than that play every time, and it didn't happen to me much. It happened to me once that I can think of. The other ones were open ice, either clean or it was an accident. I hit one of my concussions were hitting my own player breaking out. Because that sort of thing. When people ask me why I fought, well, there was all kinds of reasons. I fought way too much in the Montreal system. In an ideal year, I'd probably lose my temper 5 times. Probably 5, maybe 10 if it's a rough league in 80 games or whatever it might be. But a lot of the reason I did is because people wouldn't fucking come at me like that, because I'm telling you, I'd rather take a punch than a hit. Holy fuck, did he get corked?
He got.
Oh my God, that was
Who was it,
might as
boys?
It was
well-
Kessner.
Ke-
It was the guy who.
Kessner.
It was the
Kessner.
guy who scored the overtime
Yeah.
winner on Saturday night.
What
Yeah.
a fucking snipe, too.
Oh man.
The pass that set up that play. I remember looking to my dad and saying, "Well, if he connects on this pass, I said that guy's going to bury it."
Yeah.
And Fodder just looked at me and he's like, "How did you know that?" I was like, "We were sat right
Yeah, yeah.
behind the net, and I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
I could just see him gunning down." And
Yeah.
He was.
Well,
He saw something in that net, and buddy, he put the puck there too.
Yeah, and I mean, you should have said to your dad, well, people listen to what I have to say about hockey from time to time, so I have a podcast, don't you know?
Yes, yeah.
guys, I guess this is as good a time as any. I suppose I'll make this my old baby moment of the
All
week.
right.
The Memorial Cup, first of all, there's a couple things I want to address here. The first one, I got to give a shout out to Halifax's Joel Bishop. I watched Joel the whole way up. They're friends of the family. Joel's brother Clark is actually playing in the American Hockey League final, which is very fortunate for Steve Bishop to have 2 sons. I mean, he brought them up to be hockey players, and he must be a proud man. Yeah. But Halifax lost in the final, but Joel finished his 4th year. He's one of the captains. He's a great young player, and he's a thrill to watch. Two-way guy, not an overly offensive, but works hard, and he kills penalties better than anything.
I will say, though, just as a quick aside, Ryan Oranda, the Huskies that won, Zach O'Brien, 2 games, 1 goal before he got traded to Acadie Bathurst.
Yeah. You know what? There you go. Nice link. Good. That's why you're the producer. Because I didn't know that. I know Zach well. I knew his numbers on other teams. So look, there's one thing I want to say. People say that today's world, the small guy has a better shot. But again, I've always said there's always been small players. I think maybe in my era the small players were tougher, but there's no more small players now. The average size when I played was almost 6'1", 195, exactly what I am. Now I'm undersized. So, like if it was the same. So, barely. It's just a little bit bigger and a little bit taller and a little bit heavier. But you look at this, so I'm looking at these prospects, and for every Nick Suzuki who's unreal, and by the way, we'll get into that.
Oh, yeah.
There's Ian Ratcliffe, a Philly draft pick. Jesus, he's 6'6". I heard of his name, and earlier in the year he intrigued me. But he got 50 goals for Guelph. He's 6'6".
How fucking old is this guy?
He's just drafted. He's 18 or 19.
What was his name, sorry?
I watched him. I forget. Ian Ratcliffe. And I watched him. Guys, I heard his name all year. I didn't realize he was so big. I think he could step in now, being 6'6", and going to Philly. Blue-collar fans, they're going to love this guy. And I'm not even saying he fights. I don't know anything about him. He's great. He scored a winning goal. He looked like a great player to me. And I've always said it. 2 guys of the same size, or if you take 2 guys with the exact same talent and everything, and one guy's 6'6", and the other guy's me, you're going to take the guy 6'6", because it's just physics. If nothing else, you take up more space out there.
Bigger reach.
A bigger reach. I've often said it on a relative level. There's a guy. Let's see. I'll go in junior. Fans of the Western Hockey League back in the day. Rob Butts. Rob Butts played with Lankow and I for a spell there before he got traded. We traded for him.
Sorry, TR. It's Isaac Ratcliffe.
Isaac. Sorry.
Yeah, 6'6", 200 pounds. Fuck.
Yeah, so he's only going to get bigger, and
he's
he's got
a
lots of
lanky
potential
boy.
now. But like I used to like playing with Butsy, or on a local level, a guy named Chris Sparks, who's 6'5". Like if Sparks isn't overly physical, but if you put it in the corner, the odds are he's going to get his stick on it first. And by the end of the game, he gets it to you. He makes 10 passes out to you, and 8 of them get through. And of the 8, 4 of them you get a shot, and of the 4, 2 go in. It's physics. It's the law of averages, and I really do think I want to point out. This guy on Guelph, Gordiev, D. As I'm watching Impressed with Ratcliffe, this guy's 6'7", 224. He's 6'7". And on top of that, did anybody watch the Finland game over Canada?
Again, yesterday?
Yeah,
that one I saw a bit of it at the bar.
Finland
yeah.
over Russia, the guy who scored?
No, I
see
didn't
him?
see that one, no.
Yeah, well, he's
I didn't see
6'7".
Russia.
He's 6'7". I forget his name, plays for Finland. He scored against Russia. So I'm saying, I don't care what styles of play represent an era. I've always said big is big, and it matters. I don't care if big translates to fighting or big translates to hitting. I'm not saying it's as rough as it used to be, but still, for every Johnny Gaudreau, I'm going to give you a fucking Isaac Ratcliffe.
And that dude plays the wing.
Yeah.
I think
He's
a lot of
left
guys-
winger.
Yeah, he's massive.
Jesus
Dude, I watched the
Christ.
game and I couldn't believe what I was watching. I said, holy fuck. And to me, he stood out. These guys that I'm mentioning.
I mean, Gordiev's a defenseman, but you kind of expect a guy that size to be a defenseman. You don't think of a fucking 6'6" winger.
And so it's like, guys, the first game in the Western League, I saw that Myers play. Is it Brett? Brett, the guy who's...
Tyler, maybe?
Tyler.
Myers,
Jesus,
yeah.
Tyler. Yeah, he was 16. I was out playing for Bentley, then living in Red Deer, and I watched the game, and I said, holy shit. This guy, I mean, I don't know how no one's making him the number one prospect. He's huge. Sure enough, people talked about him.
Yeah.
And like,
Fourth overall, I
he's
think?
lanky. Yeah, you're right. He's lanky. He doesn't have the foot speed. I'm like, it doesn't look like it. But when he turns around, he's just so big that his foot speed is only going to get better, which it did, like these guys. Right? It's only going to get better, and already they can turn half the speed of a small guy and cover the same ground. So, like, if you're trying to burn Gordiev on D, right, or you're coming at John Slaney, right? Slaney could be a better skater, but Gordiev's going to get to you faster. I just dated myself. It's like, why would I bring up a 50-year-old? But anyway,
one thing I'm going to mention on this.
Tyler Myers.
I just thought of a smaller...
6'8".
When did he go drafted? He went in the
12th.
first round, 12th.
To the Buffalo Sabres.
Yeah, man. And even at the
one,
time...
One thing I'm going to mention to this, TR, is I think that people frequently forget how tall some of the skilled guys are. You look up Evgeny Malkin. Evgeny Malkin's 6'6".
Laine.
Patrick Laine is another one. He's got to be touching 6'6". I think the only reason people give a slant to size is when
Malkin's
people
6'4".
Yeah, when people use it as an excuse. Well, what else can he do?
Yeah.
And they say, well, he's really big. But it's like, well, what else? No one brings up Evgeny Malkin or Patrick Laine's height the first time around.
But that's why I think people almost just forget about those guys, because that's my point. Like, they're Malkin and Laine because they're big.
Yeah.
Right? They would still be real good. They'd probably be in the NHL. They can score like that. But Laine doesn't have that shot if he's not 6'5". Right? Yeah. He's probably a fucking AHLer. You don't know. What makes these guys great is their whole body makeup. It's not just their head and what they want to do. Malkin can do those things because the way his body is made up. So, like, for me, it's always going to be a thing. You could make it 4-on-4 and have no hitting. Mm-hmm. It's still going to be important to have. If Ratcliffe is good, give me the guy who's 6'6".
Yeah.
The two of these guys are the same. One guy is 8 inches taller than the other guy. Well, here's what I'm going to take. Anyway, now, as an extension, I want to say this. The WHL got to get their fucking act together. Now, I went to the WHL in the early 90s, and it was the best league. 3 of the 5 years I was involved in the Western Hockey League. Kamloops won the Memorial Cup. Not the West, Kamloops. Swift Current won it a few years before that. Spokane won it, I think, right before Kamloops. So there was, in a 10-year swing, the WHL won it. There's 3 leagues, so the average would be 3. I think they won it 8 times, and they continued to win. And now, I don't know if they're still... I don't know. The game is changing. I admit it. I like to see the odd guy drop the gloves if he's pissed off. I don't think the one The one player per team that's a goon. I don't think that should be around. I never think it should be. I think it slowed me down and other players. But if two people are pissed off and fight, fair enough, they go. But the Western League, I don't know what the problem is, guys, but I'm reading you the stats. This is the 4th straight year the WHL haven't won a game. They didn't win one game. I watched these teams. Prince Albert at 120-something points. They're supposed to be what they set records. The best team in the history of WHL. I'm hearing all this shit. They get, I mean, I'm just looking at the guys they got. Ian Scott, WHL Goalie of the Year, 4.36 GAA, fucking 860 save percentage. Brett Leeson, their late bloomer, undrafted. Team Canada, though, junior, no points. I don't know if the leagues are at this point, and I stand up for the WHL. I love that league. I went there for a reason. I traveled across Canada. But what the fuck? They won it in 2014, and then they won in 08, 07. That's it. In the last 10 years, they've won one in 2014. And that's bad. And it's the CHL. The Western League used to be. I don't want to. The Western League for the period I was there was the best. I don't give a fuck what you do. And if you looked at it, the first round in any draft or every round, but let's just say I don't even know. Let me think of my year. Maybe one or two guys from the Q went in the first round. I can't think of one right now off the top of my head. I can think of 4 WHLers in the first 10.
That's where defensemen were built.
Yeah, they were built. We didn't have goalies at any point. Boucher was by far the best, and we had him on here. It's not like he was a superstar in the NHL. He was a reliable backup, and I think could have been a number one for many more years than he was. But anyway, my point is there are the odd diamond in the rough. But in the West, it wasn't known for goalies. But I'm telling you, look at all those championships they won, and now they're doing nothing. They're not only doing nothing. These aren't games that they're losing by one. I watched the game against. I turned on Guelph game. I think it was 6-2. They're getting dangled. They don't look very good, and they don't look big anymore. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but the WHL got to smarten the fuck up. I don't even know who to point the finger to because I don't watch many games anymore. But
and I mean, both teams in the final were from the Q.
Both, yeah. Well, now the thing is, when that age, that's the one league I didn't want to go to, was the Q. And nothing against the Q right now, but at the time, the Q didn't win the Memorial Cup. From 1972, when I think Lafleur and them, then they didn't play it because the bus was flipped over. And Dad will tell you the story, St. Catharines and Niagara Falls, and they didn't play the last 2 games or some shit. But anyway, and the next time they won it was in 1998 with Michel Therrien when they bought like half their players, and there was controversy surrounding that. But they went like...
reading about it.
Granby won in 96.
In 96, okay, so like the better part of a quarter of a century without winning. And that was my era. So why the fuck would anybody want to go there? Now at the time, though, Halifax, Moncton, Fredericton, all these teams had AHL teams.
Yeah.
And then, so what happened when all these Q teams started sprouting up in Atlantic Canada, Atlantic Canada got the rights to all those players. So now the league got more well-rounded out. If you take just Q guys, some are going to be unbelievable, like Stéphane Richer or Mario Lemieux. They're going to be unbelievable, but they were kind of one-dimensional. There wasn't much. They did have toughness in the form of one guy per team, say like Peter Worrell, but or George Larocque or Sandy McCarthy, go down the list. But overall, the league wasn't as good. Now that it's opened up, now that all these guys got to go there, and at my time, there was a lot of Newfoundlanders that no one went to WHL like me, but Cleary, Druken, Kurt Walsh, they all went to the O. No one wanted to go anywhere near the Q. It was death. You get 150 points and go in the 8th round. It was death. But now I think it's come full circle, and the WHL, I hate to say it, is the inferior league of the 3.
Do you think, beyond what you're saying about affiliations to like AHL teams and all that kind of stuff, do you think Crosby playing in the Q had anything to do with the league and the perceptions changing towards it? Guy that, like, from the time he's a kid, he's going to be a generational talent, franchise player. He goes to Rimouski, stays in the East, like stays out East, plays in the Q. Do you think that changes anybody's perception of the quality of talent? And knowing that a guy like Crosby's playing there, scouts are coming, people are going to watch it. So does that change the level? Because from looking at the stats of like when the Q started to like be part of the conversation, it kind of
here's the
not
thing.
too far off, right?
So I think it's like. It's often I say about the Beatles, timing's everything. The Beatles, but I mean, it's totally relative. If you think of the Beatles, the timing, so not only were they like writing music that was different and all of a sudden like writing all their own tunes and playing these stadiums and everything for the first time, so many firsts, but as they're doing it, the technology for TV's coming out and they're also being beamed into people's living rooms. Whereas like, I don't know, Blind Lemon Jefferson didn't have that advantage in 1920, right?
Yeah.
So the timing for the Beatles was great. I think it's like that. Like all of a sudden,
It's that perfect storm.
The wind started to change. The odd team. Moncton Wildcats join. Halifax joins in the mid-90s. Right, and then a few guys like Chris Payton from here played for Halifax, but he wasn't a superstar. He was there. All of a sudden, a few Newfoundlanders went, but now Crosby comes through, early 2000s, and if anybody, it's not good enough for Sidney Crosby. If I was here after that, I would have stayed. If I watched Sidney Crosby, why am I going to Quesnel, BC to get beat up by fucking men?
There's a lot of guys who had NHL careers just because of scouts that had to go watch Sidney Crosby.
Exactly. And so from 2000...
So Sidney Crosby's the fifth Beatle. We all agree.
Probably in a twisted way, Crosby's the fifth Beatle.
You heard it here first.
From 2000, 2001 to up to 2006, either the winner or the runner-up of every Memorial Cup was from the Q.
And that was immediate because before that it wasn't the case.
Yeah.
Unless they hosted and had two teams. And then I think that was it in 2014. I'm not sure. But the West once in a while wins a game because they got two fucking teams in it when they host. But I'm embarrassed for the West. I'm fucking embarrassed. I don't know what they got to do, change their programs or something. But this is consistency. This isn't a bounce. 4 games, no wins, or 4 years. That's not a bounce. That's being inferior.
One thing I will say, I'd mentioned that defensemen were built in the WHL in your era. In my opinion now, I notice most of these puck-moving specialist defensemen, they're Q guys.
Yeah, a lot of them.
A lot of them are Q guys.
It's simply, you could make an argument it's the best overall league. I mean, they had 2 guys in the final again. Now, that being said, Guelph with a good game could have done either, and it's in Quebec. So it's hard. It's not easy to go into Halifax and win in front of 8,000 people either. And when the games aren't, same thing for Iran's used to playing there.
I will say this: a lot of my friends who are they're prospect guys more so. They do have NHL teams, but they really follow the prospect guys. They'll always say when they're talking stats on people, they'll always say, "Yeah, but that's the Q." Yeah. So when it comes draft time and people are sizing stuff up, say there's a guy with 141 points. They'll say, "Yeah, but he's in the Q." They'll always throw. So it still isn't. I don't think you TR just said it was the best league. I still think there are a lot of people there who will say, well,
qualify it.
Yeah, they'll put an asterisk next to it. How about that?
Well, maybe, but I don't do it anymore. It definitely used to be. We used to talk about it and laugh. But I mean, and they still had guys like Eric Daze coming out, some great players, but they never, they were no threat on a national level.
Yeah, last year the runner-up team was the Regina Pats, who were the host. They were out of the W. Other than that, Kelowna was 2005 runner-up. Edmonton won in 14 and beating the Guelph Storm.
Oil Kings, great jerseys.
The Wheat
Wait,
Kings,
where was it last year?
Last year was in Regina. Regina was the runner-up. They lost it. The last 2 years, the host is lost.
The host. Yeah. So the WHL
not even the representative. Not even the representative. The host.
No, the representative hasn't won a game in 4 years. But so thanks for bringing that up because some people were going to jump all over that and tell me that yes, they have. Yeah. But Regina hosted. That's different.
Yep. No.
They're different. In it anyway.
Yep. Going back, the last time. The WHL, the rep was the Oil Kings in Kelowna. Kelowna lost in 15 in overtime. They were the representative from the W. But not what it was from the stories I hear of TR playing for Tri-City back in the day.
Well, yeah, it's definitely a different era in so many ways. Mm-hmm. And speaking of different eras, I want to bring this next thing up. I got a few things on the docket today. Okay. I don't normally write things down. It's much better when you write things down. You remember more. Don't you?
The old Hilroy notebook.
Shocking.
Boys, do you know how many times at night I smoke a joint and I sit down to play Grand Theft Auto or some shit or Red Dead Redemption, and then I'm like, oh fuck, I just have an epiphany, and then I just ignore it and say I'll remember this in the morning. And I wake up and it's nothing. Just, what the fuck was I thinking? Yeah. And anyway, so I just started to text myself, and then I go back and look at the texts that are mixed in with all the other ones, and I've sent myself messages on Facebook and calendars. I have no organization. But point being, I did write this down. So you posted, there was a great, without getting into it, Zdeno Chara made a comment on Twitter. Well, he made a fucking comment in the dressing room.
I don't think he was on Twitter.
It was a media scrum in the locker room that someone shared. Yeah.
So, and the point was that he didn't like the word rookie. Everybody was involved in the team's success and should be treated respectfully. So anyway, and he went on, and people thought it was a real great move, and as did I. I think we were plugging him as a leader at least on 2 shows. I know recently.
Yeah, we have.
And I agree because I know
some of
guys
us begrudgingly have pumped a lot of Zdeno Chara tires this year.
Well, and I played against him when he was in the Western League as well, so I guess I have a affinity for old school guys like me. But so a few people piped in and said, well, it's different now that because it used to be, you were a rookie and you weren't respected and Chara's a great leader because he realizes that. Now, look, I think Chara's a great leader, but I want to point out, that I'm sometimes when guys like me romanticize the past, that happens with fighting. I get it. I know what side I'm on, but I understand the other side of the argument, and you got to have a talk about it. So a lot of times guys like me romanticize the past and like everything was good in the game back then and now it's not. Well, I don't think so, though, because there were bad leaders in every era. Often people my age will go, oh, back in my day, Stevie Y wouldn't have, done this, or he wouldn't have called out the ref, or this, or Marc Messier was the best leader. But for every Marc Messier, there was an Alexei Yashin. Gord Dineen, I don't know if you guys remember that. Gord Dineen, I think it was the first year of the Senators. He was the captain. He was like minus 60, and he got sent down the next year. Like that, I don't care how good you are in the room. It's not a good captain.
Everything about the first year of the Senators was probably about minus 60.
Well, probably it's equal
Couldn't
to
even
this year.
sit on one side of that rink.
It's like they haven't turned the page. Ilya Kovalchuk wasn't a great captain in Atlanta, right? He's a good player, but I don't know about a great captain. And then you get
look at a guy like fucking
spit it out.
Thornton.
Oh,
Thornton, good lead, guy with an A, great. But anytime he's had the C, he's struggled.
Yeah, and that. Well, but the other thing is people are more comfortable.
Spit it out.
Yeah, like I would say.
I'm sorry.
Ovi, I still think he could be captain though. So I don't think because the other guys should never have been captain. Ovi grew as a player. Ovi, I didn't think was a good captain at the start. He was too selfish. I'll say that. And I even made some comments on it. I think he learned. I used to say Crosby's a better leader, but he was. Now, this guy's going head-to-head with your generational talents. You're going to pick something up off of him, right? I'm not saying Crosby picked up nothing from Ovechkin, but Ovechkin, I think, being driven by one of the best leaders in the game, improved. So, different. Now, I'll name some names. Think of these captains, no matter what era. Gretzky, Yzerman, Messier, Crosby, Beliveau, Sakic, Stevens, right? So there's always been great captains. For each one of those, there's a shit. There's someone that probably didn't deserve to be. But I just think in today's game, I don't think that's changed much. The culture of the captain and what he has to do, or she, and we're talking about extending pro leagues, that has changed, and the climate's changed a little bit. But a good leader is still a good leader, and there's still teams that have shitty leaders. So I just wanted to point that out. And he's a good fucking example because he represents my era, but that point of view was completely new. And I can't say I disagree with him. I wasn't treated too poorly, but some people really ragged on rookies. It happened on a couple of teams I was on, and it made me feel uncomfortable and by extension, not play as well.
And I think a big thing, and I've talked about this a bit because, as I said, I'm wearing a Bruins sweater right now. That team has had incredible production up and down the depth chart. All 4 lines are producing.
I know, Mike.
All 4 lines are producing really well, and they're getting guys like, there are guys that are just scoring on that team and being impact players right across the way. And it's because I think the leader of that team goes into the room with, like, everybody contributes, everybody's part of this team, nobody's more than anybody else. And I think that kind of mentality is what's making every guy on that team go, yeah, I can be an impact player tonight.
Yeah,
I think it's having a huge impact. I think it's a big part of. But I mean, St. Louis, and I don't know if I haven't heard the same thing from the Blues, but they've got the same kind of. They've got incredible production up and down.
Now,
and I assume it's because they probably have the same sort of mentality.
One thing, I'm glad we got to the Blues, because one thing that is always going to stick into my mind about this Blues season, I think is the first time I have ever seen something go to the point where the for sale sign was out there.
Yeah.
It was there. They were taking offers on Tarasenko to the point where they were telling fucking people like Elliot Friedman we're for sale.
Yeah.
And the owners were like, well, no, figure it the fuck out. And to me, that's the craziest thing. Like, people were putting together offers and they were going to blow this up. So I think it's not as much as a captaincy thing as it's, okay, fellas, we all got to put our hands around the rope and pull on them, and obviously finding
And
a
fuck analytics.
finding a goaltender that they found out of like their third stringer to
Off
come
the
up.
Prov-
But
off the Providence
it's buying
Bruins.
in, and like I said before, it's fuck analytics.
Yeah.
I get the point of analytics. If I was a GM, I'm not saying I wouldn't use them. I'm not an idiot. They're results. But why are St. Louis in the final? Just someone explain that to me. Like,
Because analytically, they've been the best team since January 2nd.
There's one guy I know who's going to say they're the Corsi
but
Kings
of
or
course,
something.
but the playoffs, of course, they have been,
it's-
because the playoffs are part of that, and passionate. Now, I'm not saying that, I wouldn't pay attention to the numbers that are right in front of me statistically. Obviously, there's a point. I just mean, guys, like we'll find out. Guys ride the wave in the zone. You can't explain it. Bennington is an example. Think of the fucking Hamburglar a few years ago.
Yeah.
Johan
Jim Carrey
Hedberg.
back in the day.
Hedberg is my favorite one.
There you go.
Johan Hedberg.
And even
was it.
players. In the early 90s, there was a guy, John Druce, and we should have asked Frady about him. He played for fucking Washington, and the next year was a guy, Chris Kontos. And both of them had like 20 goals in the playoffs. It was fucking insane.
Yeah.
But they could dial it in the playoffs, and you couldn't really explain it. And if you went analytically on the year, you wouldn't fucking you wouldn't foresee that happening. Now, again, I'm only bringing that up because I brought it up a while ago, and people often, just like the Drake thing, which I'm going to get to in a second, they take me the wrong way. I'm not saying there's no place for analytics, otherwise you'd lose every goddamn game, right, if you didn't pay any attention to it. I just mean that sometimes it's harder to find the team that might go off course. It's harder to find something with Columbus, Carolina, St. Louis this year, something took those guys to the next level, and finding what it is, I think, is the hardest part of scouting. It's not looking at paper and seeing that fucking Ian Ratcliffe, who's 6'6", fucking 205 pounds as a 17-year-old or an 18-year-old, get 50 goals this year. To me, that's not scouting. That's just obvious, right? Anybody can scout that. Scouting is figuring out what makes these guys tick. Why are St. Louis in the final right now? And if you did some digging, you'd probably analytically figure out the answer. But anyway, you know what I'm getting at.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing with that is, like, as much as you can talk about like the analytics of it and all that kind of shit, at the end of the day, it's still the anecdotal Cinderella story of they were last place team on January 2nd. They've dug in, they found a way to win. The teams come together. Now they're in the cup
A
final.
lot of it is confidence and belief. Like Brad said, Brad Brown told me some great stories last week when we heard boys. What I loved is, remember the Rob Ray thing he told us, and then when we had weights on our skates?
Yeah.
So those two stories, but those made him feel bad, and you can see as a former pro that really, really weighed on his mind. And I remember I didn't think about it till we were talking, but that weighed on my mind too. How do you feel? You're out there and you got to have these weights on your skates. No one gives a fuck even to tell anybody about it. You get sent out there. Like, I remember, I make jokes of it, and I made the best of it. So like when I fought Cam Russell, I posted it or whatever. That was all right, but that was my first shift of the game. It doesn't feel good. Brad was sent out in a worse situation in the third period at the end.
End of
for
the
his
game.
first NHL fight with his family there watching.
Yeah.
Fed to Rob
Go
Ray.
get Rob Ray.
They're literally screaming for Rob.
Yeah.
It's like when Spider-Man fights Macho Man in that fucking movie 20 years ago.
yeah.
But the other thing, the other thing with that is, like, on top of everything else, there's nothing in the stat line to track analytically how someone performs in a game after they were wearing weights on their skates in practice.
Yeah.
Like, until you got that as a stat.
Don't
fuck it.
don't challenge the internet because they might fucking find
right?
a way.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
And I joke about it, but boys, I'm telling you, you get sit. I don't know how many I got. I got quite a few games in the NHL with not one shift, and I'm telling you that doesn't feel good. I know, I get it that you're making money and you're in the NHL. And I always did look at it like that. The glass was half full, but subconsciously it's happening to you. And I can't even say all of it was subconscious. Sometimes I came in and I remember being in Los Angeles, and I think we were losing 5-1, if not 4-1. The game was almost over.
Yeah.
I remember Recchi being on the bench and going like, I wonder why they don't put you in. Like, and I'm going like, there's 2 minutes left.
Yeah.
Like, if I don't put my skates on the ice, it's not even counted as a game played.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I put my gear on. Like, how much do you not trust me?
Yeah.
What's it going to be, 6-1?
Yeah.
Like, what's the worst that can happen? I can give the puck away. So that plays on someone's
Who was
mind.
the guy
Can I-
that asked you, does the coach know you're out here? Because I really like that
Cam
story.
Russell.
That
Cam
was a
Russell
good
is,
one.
the GM of the Halifax Mooseheads, by the way. Congrats to Cam. He commented on,
Yeah.
I hadn't spoke to him since, and I posted on Instagram
Yeah.
a couple weeks ago, the fight with him and that story, and he commented and said, I can't remember what he said, but he remembers it. It was a great story.
Yeah, that was a good one. That was a good burn.
This is a question that I've got for you, TR, and I don't want to. like it's one of those weird, like the way it's going to phrase it, it might sound like I'm trying to chirp, but I'm not. How many you played 8 games in the NHL?
Yeah.
You had a shit ton of fights. How many games did you play where your penalty minutes were higher than your time on ice?
Well, this is the thing, because if you look at dropthegloves.com, I was surprised. I used to say to people, like, I felt like I played more than 8 because I played so many exhibition games, but they must have been, and Brad remembers that too. I think they dressed us for almost every exhibition game, because if you go to dropthegloves.com, I have 16 NHL fights. And that doesn't make sense in 8 games. I didn't even look at when they are. I just glanced at this the other day. Fans, like, fucking copy and paste shit and send it to me. So on dropthegloves.com, I mean, half of those must be in exhibition games. I don't really remember. And in Montreal's exhibition games at the time, like I don't count it saying exhibition if we played in like Val d'Or. Like these are NHL.
I'm just checking for the site and it's not coming up.
Dropthegloves.com.
It's not coming up for that. I'll try that.
What was the
Drop Your
preseason-
Gloves?
Oh, drop your gloves. I'll
Maybe.
try that.
What was the preseason schedule like when you were there? I'm wondering if it was as heavy as now. I know the Habs played like 12 games.
Oh yeah,
a
yeah.
few
We
years ago.
we
Still-
always
still
had.
that.
Yeah, we had like. I remember because. Yeah, I remember it being standing out. It was way too long because then I'd have to often play the Fredericton exhibition as well. So like before the year started,
you had 18
I got a
games.
football
Yeah,
season in me.
you had 18 games
Right?
under
It's
your
fucking
belt.
brutal.
Yeah, it's dropyourgloves.com.
Dropyourgloves.com. Okay, there it is. I believe it says 16 NHL fights.
I'm checking. It's not coming up.
So that would probably mean. Yeah, I don't know which. I get confused on which ones are.
Never
regular
mind. There's a
season.
whole thing that's saying dropyourgloves.com isn't working right now. So there's a whole bunch of
Okay.
Reddit shit about it.
That's it. It was just on the other day, so it had to be recently.
If you're listening, fix it.
Yeah, we're trying to drive traffic your way. God damn it.
Well, I became buddies with a lot of those guys. This is fortunate. A lot of those fight guys are real passionate, right?
I would have never guessed.
Yeah, really. So, but you also have to understand, like millennials have to understand where these people are coming from. Like I grew up, part of that generation that we looked and it was normal. Like to me, I remember watching 2 hockey players fight and then like meeting Chris Nyland, these people, and going like, what? Like every other sport, like baseball would turn into a brawl, or when someone in basketball threw a punch, like everybody would sucker them and it seemed like a gang of wolves. And then I'd look at and hockey had this elegance to it. And like some of your heroes would fight, and then after the game, they would talk with total respect about the other guy. And that was eye-opening. And I don't care what anybody says, like you were watching it and it was normal at the time. So we weren't all sitting there going, should it be taken out? Like it was just part of it, like fucking the face-off was. So like you have to throw these people a bone. And a lot of them came because they liked that. Now the culture changed, and I understand why it did. I'm somewhere right in the middle. But these... so a lot of them, I would come off after games, and what happened in Montreal a lot, you'd take off your jersey and you'd put it in the bin. When in every, even in senior hockey, you take off your jersey, put it in the bin, the trainer washes them, you get it back next game, right? It's in your stall waiting for you. But I found out halfway through my time in Montreal and Fredericton that the trainer, they would collect those, and in Montreal, most games, they would keep them, put them up for like auction, and you'd have a brand new jersey the next game. So... Not every time.
I thought you were going to say that I found out that I put them in the bin and then they just didn't wash mine. They didn't.
Right.
They didn't need to.
Well, I used to wonder how the blood got out so fast. So anyway, when I found that out,
a man putting on a fresh jersey and just going, "Geez, what are they using for fucking shout here?" For?
I hope they're washing these before they're auctioning them, because I can just see a bunch of really into it fans.
No, but people want the blood on them.
Yeah.
Like these sites, look, I'm telling you, I'm not joking. When you go to these sites, like they sell jerseys on dropthegloves.com, drop your gloves. It'll come up soon, but I was looking at it like a week ago.
Yeah.
And like it'll say like whether, like in my fight, say it rates the fight. It'll say how many punches were thrown, who won, and then someone will give an explanation, and it'll say jersey available, yes or no. And if the box is ticked, it'll say blood on it, yes. And if it's blood on it, people pay like thousands of dollars for it. I'm dead serious, man. I'm dead fucking serious. So. But in Montreal, that's maybe how I found out. So once I found out in certain games that they would keep them and just auction them off, I think in a rebellious way, no one ever really found out, I don't think. But I would take him, like if I saw the upper deck guy, because he would come to all the games, and I'm like, he's a hockey card guy, and I always want to be on a hockey card. I can't believe you want anything to do with me. So I go, here, take my jersey. Yeah. So, and a lot of these guys went hand in hand, and they started these, like one is Hockey Fight History on Twitter. Yeah. There's dropthegloves.com. Joe Lazito, the Subway...
Oh, that dude's story's insane.
He's the first guy I gave, and he was working for a hockey card company.
Okay.
So I got all these connections and all these cards a lot of the time, and I didn't even think anything of it. He's like, "Oh, thanks for giving me a jersey." I'm like, "You're a huge fan. Of course I will." Like, and it was before the internet. He used to phone me in the summer, and I didn't take that as a bad thing. Like he was some super fan. He was legitimately interested and took me to meet his family and everything. So like I met people like this along the way, and they're all legit. Like they have different backgrounds, but they all came out of that generation, and that's what they like about it. So often when we're knocking it, and I get it, but millennials, I think, and especially people on Twitter who like to be loud and not think about a situation, you have to understand where these people are coming from, right? It's part of the game that they love. And a lot of them jumped from football or basketball or baseball at the time, the American people, because they saw this game that got people to go out and give it. And I think with the representative of the hockey fight, what they see is they cannot believe the level of respect that happens, and that it's just 5 minutes for fighting and it's over. Trust me, my billets, everybody I've come across in the States that is a new fan, that's a big thing for them. And some love it and some hate it, but the ones who love it, that's where they're coming from.
Yeah.
It's all Mutter wanted to see.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people go, because it is a novelty. You give me a sport that you're allowed to do that?
One thing I'm always going to say is I am, because you said you're kind of right in the middle of it. One, I am always going to say you need to have a way to police on the let the players do that. I just, I don't like the idea of, well, we've got to have a guy who all he does is go out there.
Yeah, well, I don't agree with that either.
Jaws off on the face-off, and okay, we're going to go. And to me, that just slows the game down. And I am honestly amazed, because I was a hockey fan during, I would consider the climax of that era of, the late 90s, where every other shift you had two guys at the face-off jawing at one another, and they'd go, and they were as big as fucking King Kong and Godzilla going after one another.
Yeah, that's why it was tough for me, man.
I'm amazed that I went through, that era of hockey as a pretty young fan, and never saw a very, very, I mean, not to discredit the Bertuzzi thing, that was a very serious incident, but like I'm talking about.
But that wasn't a fight. That was a sucker punch.
Yeah,
that's a different thing.
I'm talking. I'm amazed that looking back, you got fellas up well above 240 chucking bombs and nobody died.
Yeah,
for the sake of that was how they had the job as an enforcer. Well, I'm not, but I think if you completely erase it, you're going to have guys going low to injure with knees, and you're going to have guys swinging their sticks high.
Yeah, no matter what, it's violent, right? So it's going to be physical.
I
And
always bring back
for me, we just to get on what you were talking about earlier. That I didn't like that either. I felt it. Now a lot of goons, if you want to say that. I never liked that word. I almost found it like people find like newfie off-putting. Yeah. Although you look at my Instagram post, with the last one with the 50th goal. Yeah. It's a term of endearment. Look at the newfie go. Right?
Yeah.
So like, I didn't take it as an insult for most people. It's the context it's used. I find goon kind of like that. Because a lot of the guys, again, John Scott's got a fucking university degree. Stu Grimson.
It's definitely derogatory.
I keep going. George Peros, I can go. But it sounds derogatory. But that was a job, and they did it well. But I think before that, like I said, Probert, Nyland, Dave Schultz, like these guys had like 20 goals. So they were Probert was so scary because he was an NHL All-Star, and he could do that. What that developed is people trying to match Probert that wasn't as good talent. So all of a sudden you had all these meatballs joining in, and I came right into that. Here's a guy like me that's average size, that's definitely not going to back down. But I kind of wish I don't wish. Yeah. But if I come in at any other point, I was going, fuck it. Like I'm supposed to score goals, but I'm going to fight Belak. And there was a lot of people that came in like a Ginla, Doan. Again, I'm not. At one time, I was on that level. That's where we were. I know I'm going to get fucking emails now. Who the fuck do you think you are? I'm telling you, we saw it with relatively the same lenses in the glasses. Yeah. And that, I used to get offended. I'm like, I can fight. Like, Iggy can fight, and he's good. Like, why do you need this fucking meatball? Why am I even fighting him? What is that? I'm going to fight this guy that can't skate, and I'm going to do okay? So clearly, we don't need someone that's, just do some scouting, get some guys like me that can drop their gloves and fucking play. Yeah. Right? I used to now a lot of those goons, so-called, ended up being my friends. So, there's a time and a place, and that's over. But I don't want to fuck them out of something here, like, because they also were always the most giving. They were humanitarians. The thing about the fucking tough guys, they were happy to be there. They would do the most charity work. People talk about now about personalities in the game, and we're losing them. You look no further than the tough guys for personalities. They ran the music. They didn't turn down an interview. They were the first at the hospital. There's a whole lot of good things that people don't see that went on with the tough guys as well.
And I mean, a good example of that, who a lot of people kind of consider him to be that tough guy goon, but was huge in the community and stuff, is Thornton.
Yes,
Sean Thornton.
Sean Thornton. Yeah.
When I
Totally.
mean, he played here for years, and still talk. I still hear people talking about all the friends and stuff, and how close to the community he was, all the charity work he does in Boston still, and all this kind of stuff.
Sean Thornton Foundation.
Yeah.
Stopped my uncle outside of the Florida Panthers arena when he was on a family vacation.
Oh, you told me this story before.
Because
yeah.
he heard him say the word bye to his kids. And he just tapped him on the shoulder. And my uncle was like, I felt a big Jesus mitt on my shoulder. And he said, are you from Newfoundland? And my Uncle Mike was like, yeah. He said, yeah, I just heard you use the word bye. He said, I don't know. He said the number of years, 3 or 4. He said, 3 or 4 of the best fucking years of my life were spent in St. John's.
Oh, yeah. That's great. That's great. You had something you want to talk about for intentional offsides. Are you good?
Our guest is supposed to come. I got one more thing to say, but that can happen whenever. Our guest is supposed to go on now, but I don't have his number.
Okay.
So what should we do? Should we wait for the guest, or should we just add a guest now at some point? I can get a hold of somebody that is a hockey person.
Well, let's round off. I'll tell you what. Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna take a second. We're gonna hear from one of our sponsors, Miller Lite.
Aha! We're gonna take a cold, crisp break.
We're gonna take a cold kiss. Say that again.
Come on. We're gonna take a cold, crisp break,
and then we're gonna come back in a second, and we'll either keep going on some offside stuff and some other things. We'll have a guest. We'll figure it all out after this word from Miller Lite.
Here's a few things to know when opening an ice-cold Miller Lite. They brew their beer to 90 calories and 3 grams of carbs per 355 milliliter serving. And they also brew for great taste. It's this great Pilsner taste that's made Miller Lite a favorite for our beer drinkers everywhere. Miller Lite, 90 calories, 3 grams of carbs. It's Miller time.
All right, so we're back. We've decided what we're going to do. We're going to chat about a couple little things. We're going to see if the guest gets back to us that we're waiting on. And if that doesn't happen, we've got a special call we're going to have someone come on for a few minutes. But in the meantime, we're going to chat about just a couple things. TR, you had one more on your list. Are you ready to go for that, sir?
Okay, let me see what I had on my list.
One of your other GTA text messages to yourself.
Yes, you're right.
Which GTA game are you playing?
I was going to explain. So a lot of people, what I've done, I've trying to be proactive about it because I often don't get to tell my own stories on here because, well, I kind of allude to them, but a lot of people wanted to hear them. So I post some stuff on Instagram, stuff that people have asked me to explain sometimes that I've kind of peppered at on here, but I've never really gotten to. So my last post on Instagram, I usually put them up on Thursdays for the Throwback Thursday because most of the good things that happened to me were in the past. Hockey-wise, well, everything's in the past, really.
I mean,
I shouldn't say good, but my hockey escapades peaked a long time ago, which is great. I'm still involved in the game. I didn't mean to throw shade at myself there, but you know what I mean.
We were just going to dunk on you for throwing shade at yourself.
I think you had a big day on Friday. I mean, we went out. We had our game of shinny. I think the first hour, our team scored, I think, maybe 7 goals. TR had 6 of them. I had the 7th, not a big deal, but
I was wondering where you were going
there.
That's
right.
I was waiting.
There was a way to explain
reason that
he had a goal.
anecdote got told was that I could drop that I got 1 goal at a shitty pickup game.
I could tell by fucking Mike's body language in that seat across from me that he scored.
That's where he was going.
Yeah, that's where that was going. Obviously, I got a couple more after TR left. Again, I'm not here to pump my own tires, guys.
I had a natural hat trick when everybody was off the ice and the Zamboni driver was telling me to leave. I can't fucking skate.
They're patient guys at Twin Rings.
So anyway, I just posted some stuff on there that I got over the years. I got so much shit on VHS and stuff, so I literally hold up my phone and fucking tape the TV. So back in 94, 95, my draft year, so the last post was me scoring a goal and going down the fucking ice like a madman. But what it was I 50 is a magical number in hockey to get goals in a season, regular season goals. So I tore it up at the beginning of the year, and I don't remember being too inconsistent, but I must have fallen off a little bit because I had 48 goals for like maybe 6 games. I was stuck at 48. So you think just needing 2 goals. I mean, I was on our first line power play, and I played with Damon Lankow, best player in the league at the time. Well, at least arguably, but he was the leading scorer. And I like to think we both helped each other out, I suppose, in hindsight. But whatever the case, I was out there a lot. I hit posts. So going into the final game, I had 48 goals still. And all the guys on my team really wanted me to get that magic number 50. Especially in your draft year is one thing. Like I say, often, the first round, nothing and everything. But, a lot of shit led to that. And I still say it. Like, I had 50 in my draft year. Like, that's not easy to do. I don't give a fuck. Like, it was 18, 19, 20 years when most people do that. I was a 17-year-old and did it. And again, I guess I will pump my tires and say that, because often I just post fights or whatever, and that's the whole thing. A lot of people think I'm this fucking goon because the thing that lasts on YouTube is often the fucking minute fight clip, right? And you don't want to be posting, this is a goal I got in November in Swift Current, a tap in front of the net. So, over time.
Unless you're Mike.
Yeah. So, over time, a lot of things, I guess, I don't want to say misconstrued, but people forget some of the magical stories that happened in my career. And this was, it was personal, but it was everybody coming together. So going into the final period, Bob Laux looks at me and my coach, and he said, we're going to get you that 50. He said, just you come off whenever you're ready. So, and we in the games at the time in Northwest USA, the games were on TV, so we had at least 2 TV timeouts coming and a team timeout. So, and this was abnormal for the time, and no one just played the whole period. And I'm sure I came off a little bit. But I remember it was up to me kind of thing, and the guys supported it, and they were double shifting me, triple shifting me. Anyway, with about 5 minutes left, Langkow and I out there shorthanded, and he's just feeding me. And we're up 6-2 on Portland, so I'm taking chances. I'm not playing the best defensively. Anyway, Lank sets me up. I remember I had one of my gloves fell off in the defensive zone, and I just kept going. And I fucking scored. He gave it to me for a tap-in. 49 goals. So now I'm panicking, like, I really want to get 50, but there's only 3 or 4 minutes left. Of course, I really wanted to get 50, but the boys really want to. Just stay out there, T-Bone. We call another timeout. Stay out there.
And, of course, this is the year you guys had the charity going, too, right?
Yes, exactly. So every goal I get is going to money is being donated to the Todd Clausen Foundation. Thank you. So, yeah, every goal I got that year didn't feel personal. It felt like community involved. It was a wild year, and I totally believe that some level of karma led to that success, because it seemed like everything I touched went in. But if it was going to happen, what a good year for that to happen, right, in your draft year. So, but anyway, so they leave me out there, and with 20 odd seconds left, Langkow comes around the net, and I just went to stand in front of the net. It was really nothing more than that. There was no great instinct to it. I didn't even have the puck for more than 2 seconds on my stick. Langkow just kept throwing it at the net low, so I'd get a stick on it. Finally, if it comes free, I put it in on Scott Rideout. I scored my 50th goal with 21 seconds left in the regular season. So I took my stick out, and there was a golfer named Chichi Rodriguez, and he used to do this little dance. Other than follow me on Instagram, what I am again? Terry Run 2020 on Instagram. So if you want to see it, that's it.
You remember now?
I do,
because of my little trick.
Because of your trick.
Yeah.
And Terry Run 20 on Twitter. I think I posted it to both. But in any case, that's what was going on. So it was a big moment for me. Again, at the time as well, being the only Newfoundlander that ever went out there to play, and everybody kind of picked up on the story. Tri-City were a fairly new team. So a lot of people hadn't seen anybody. I think we had 3 players in the history at that point get 50. Brian Sakic, Kyle Reeves. I think me and Langkow had scored his 50th earlier that season. But it was a big deal. It still is. It's on the wall out there. I think I posted, So it was a big moment, and I really did feel like everybody came involved. So the Chichi Rodriguez was just a fucking stupid move. If I'd got another shift, I probably would have been grabbed at the time in the WHL. It made it 7-2, and I hot dogged it all the way down.
I was wondering what that was. I thought it was like a Three Musketeers you were going for.
It was I called it
Zorro.
Yeah, kind of like Zorro. It was. I call it the Chichi Rodriguez, but I think Chichi Rodriguez. He used to do it like when he made a good putt, but I think he was mimicking Zorro.
Okay, I was thinking.
I call it the Chichi Rodriguez because he used to do it, but in my mind, he was giving it a full-on Zorro. But in any case, that was the story. And, a couple months later, and that night as well, Langkow, being out with me all that time, got 5 points. Tucker had 7 in his game because the same thing. They wanted him to win the scoring, and Langkow ended up winning the scoring by 2 points. So good thing, I guess, that they played us so much. Now, those are just two personal things. Lanks won the scoring, and I got my 50th on the same night. But a great memory because the whole Tri-Cities it was the first time that they'd seen anything like that, especially that dramatic with 20 seconds left. And it was a community event because every goal I scored, some money went to the Todd Klassen Foundation. So it was a wonderful memory, and that's where I was coming from with that post. And more to come next week. That's what I'm going to do on Thursday. So I'm going to post a picture or a video clip and then talk about it here the next time. So
I like it. It sounds good.
it. And any fans want, you can send me a message, and if the majority of people want a certain thing, then that's what I'll post, just like this time.
I like it. That sounds great. I think it'll be a cool addition. A couple cool things while you were talking about that. I did look up some stuff about 50 goals because, like you said, it is this kind of massive benchmark in any league. And there's some interesting stuff I found out about 50-goal seasons in the NHL. Just while we're killing some time here, waiting to see if our guest gets back to us. Obviously, the first 50-goal season was Maurice Rocket Richard did 50 and 50, but that was back in 1944-45. The next 50-goal scorer wouldn't be till Boom Boom Geoffrion did it in 64 games in 60-61. From there, Bobby Hull did it 4 times throughout the 60s. And then starting in 1971, there have been 50-goal scorers, at least one 50-goal scorer in every NHL season, excluding lockouts, except for 3. So other than the lockout years, there's only been 3 years there weren't 50-goal scorers, and that was 03-04, 16-17, and 17-18.
16-17 was really low, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So that was like, did anyone even get 40 that year? I think 43 took it.
I'm looking at like 50 goal stuff specifically. And from 13, 14, 14, 15, 15, 16, and 18, 19, Alexander Ovechkin did it. There was 3 of those years, he's the only guy to do it.
That's why I say in relativity.
Yeah.
That's what I used to say about Gretzky and Lemieux and them. Like, I don't care how many points people say, well, the goalies sucked. Yeah, but if they're winning it every goddamn year, they're better than everybody else. Like, I don't care if they get 500 points or they get 50.
Yeah.
If everybody else
They were all
gets way
playing with the
less.
same goalie.
Yes,
Everyone
right?
in the fucking league had those goalies.
Gretzky got 215, okay. And Lemieux had 199 after that was, say, like 120. Well, clearly, if 2 guys are 100 points better than the other guy. So, to me, it's all relative, but that's just like Ovechkin. Ovechkin's not like he's getting 92 goals, but he's getting 50 and 60 in an era where he consistently is the leading scorer. And the motherfucker's 33 or 34 now, and he's still doing it.
Can he do
to
the
me,
Gretzky
those
thing?
numbers are...
This past year was his 8th 50-goal season.
I'm kind of ashamed of how much time I spend wondering if Ovi's going to pass Gretzky.
I think it's a longevity question. I think if he can, it's just a matter of whether or not he stays in the NHL long enough to do it. And I think he might be stubborn enough to do it.
What do they do with the hockey?
If nothing goes wrong, like I said, you're in those 30s.
Yeah.
True.
You have to understand what he's going for.
A high
when
ankle
he's
sprain could derail him
50
at this
this year.
point.
I want him to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, why?
I think the game, having that conversation is come up and be like, well, now there's 2 guys that have done it. I think it's just good
if
for
he
the game.
does it,
right?
though, I will be impressed because, like I said, even though you could say he's the only guy right now that it's possible, it's still, how many does he need? It's a long way to go.
I think he needs to do at least 35 for at least 6 seasons or
Yeah,
something.
a lot of goals,
he's got to
guys.
play 8 years at least.
When
I
you're
think.
that
it's-
age, at some point, like I
assuming
said,
decline, it's assuming decline.
he'll still be good, but you
Yeah.
got to count on 35 and 40 goals and shit for that long.
Yeah,
I
and
don't know.
He's been doing. He's got a high average now too. I think he's passed Gretzky in goals per game average now.
I'd like to see him get 70 next year. Just really.
That's possible.
Yeah.
I said, I don't
he
think
might not do
there's-
it next year. He might not do it next year, but if he's around for the 21-22 after the next fucking lockout, next full season after because goal scoring's been down so much, they're going to do some shit during this next CBA and it's going to change some shit.
question.
It might go up.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How much is scoring down? Like, do we know the actual numbers from the 80s and the numbers from now? Because if you look at the top 10 and top 20 scorers of all time, I was led to believe, because the 80s and everybody talks about the open door fucking goalies, and I was led to believe that everybody would be from that era, but it's not the case. Like, Ovechkin is a dominant scorer. He's up there. Ovechkin's like 4th. Like, I mean, like, so like, there's all kinds of guys. Like Joe Thornton, I was surprised at where he stood up with the points. So like, if the goalies were so bad, how come everybody wasn't doing it? Like, you know what I mean? You'd expect. I know that there were people like Hull had 76, and like Solani, and there was some crazy years. But other than that, like when Hull had the 76, like were there 20 guys getting 50? Judging on the numbers, I would expect their 1 year to be like 30 guys with 50 goals, but I don't think that was the case.
The year that Hull had, you're talking Brett Hull, the year he had,
74.
He had 72.
Okay, 72.
In 89-90. He had 86 in 90-91, and there were 4 other guys, Brett Hull, Cam Neely, Theo Fleury, and Steve Yzerman, all passed. All those 3 guys had 51. Brett Hull had 86.
Okay, so again,
the year that Hull
says
had,
a lot for Hull.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think there were as many scorers back then as people think there were. Like, the scorers were unbelievably prolific, but Brett Hull had one of the best shots ever.
Yeah.
So if he had 86, the way it's in your head, when he had 86, you're thinking, okay, so Gretzky must have had 78 that year, and Yzerman must have had 72. It's not the case. A few other guys had 50.
I don't think Yzerman has a 70-goal season, does he?
Yzerman had the year that Hull had 72. Yzerman had 62, and then Cam Neely, Bellows, LaFontaine, Robitaille, Richer, and Lehman all had between 55 and 51.
Well, that starts to get a little bit inflated then that year, especially when I love Gary Lehman, but he was a defenseman that became a forward. And,
the year Gretzky...
Gary Lehman's got unbelievable hands, by the way. I'll take that back. Fuck that. He can score. But anyway...
The year Gretzky had 87.
Yeah.
There were 7 guys.
And who are
7
there?
or 8. Michel Goulet.
Yeah, he was sick.
Tim Kerr, Glenn Anderson, Yari Curry, Rick Vive, Mike Bossy, and Mike Bullard all had, the year Gretzky had 87, between 56 and 51 goals.
You know, I find this very entertaining.
But
for
they're all
huge
Hall of Famers.
The big fuck analytics thing, and we're just all diving into numbers right now.
Yeah,
the year Gretzky.
When I say fuck
the year
analytics,
Gretzky
by the
had
way,
92. The year Gretzky had 92. Bossy had 64. Dennis Marek had 60, and then there were 7 guys.
Dennis
with
Maruk.
Okay.
He's
good thing it's not an alumni game.
Ken Reed's got a book about fucking Dennis Maruk. He could really snipe. But now, by the way, yes, I don't consider this analytics. This is the thing. Analytics, technically, like Merrick said, is information. But
yeah.
I was just cracking a joke because we've been talking about numbers.
And you are right.
Yeah.
Because information, this is the kind of thing that I think has to be paid attention to. Like if I'm on the ice in the fucking early 90s and I don't put Solani on my power play if I'm Winnipeg, I'm an idiot. Why would I do that? Well, he had 76 goals. So technically that's analytical. But I just find, and yes, I don't want to be the old man like Don Cherry that won't give in. There is a place for it, and this is it. But
that year that Solani had that was also the year that was the most 50-plus goal scorers, where McGillney, Solani each had 76, Lemieux had 69, Robitaille had 63, Bure had 60, Turgeon, Yzerman each had 58, Kevin Stevens had 55, Brett Hull had 54, Anderchuk had 54, LaFontaine and Recchi both had 53, Shanny had 51, and Roenick had 50.
Totally forgot that Kevin Stevens had a 55-goal season. Yeah. Kevin Stevens, remember the Pittsburgh Penguins? That gives me a segue into my intentional offside.
Ah, there we go.
Nailed it.
There we go.
All right. We're recording this on Monday, so it's definitely up by now. The news came out yesterday that the Pittsburgh Penguins, both GMs, the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Minnesota Wild, published a trade that was axed by a guy not waiving his no trade. So my intentional offsides is not to the guy who axed it. It's Phil Kessel, of course. By the time the puck drops in October, Phil Kessel's going to get traded again. A lot of people have a lot of strong opinions on Phil Kessel. I'm indifferent to him.
Isn't this like the 3rd time he's nixed a trade?
Well, here's the thing. If you sign a no trade, you can nix a trade.
Yeah.
Don't. But to that, I say Pittsburgh is not the team that gave him that no trade. They traded and have received him, so he waived it. So there's a lot of people saying, well, and by people I mean not connected. I mean a lot of angry masses on Twitter. People saying that, well, once you waive a no trade, it should be waived.
No, I think
I disagree to that.
I disagree
to that because these people have lives and families and kids, and you have to move or you have to live out of a hotel and whatnot. However, it would benefit Canadian markets because if you look at these 10-team no-trade lists, Winnipeg is on every fucking player's no-trade list.
But guys, think about it. I love the people of Winnipeg. I love the people of Edmonton. I love, but it can't be surprising. I've always said to people that some people want to play in Tampa Bay, man. Like it can't. When I say Tampa Bay, I'm saying everywhere down south.
Well,
like let's be honest. Nothing against Winnipeg, but there's fucking wait. There's snow. There's snow. Okay, where's there not snow?
There's snow.
How about the fucking beach in Florida?
And the other thing, not even that though.
I love it. I'd go, but I'm just saying I understand why a lot of people wouldn't.
But on those lists, I can guarantee you a bunch of the teams that are on the a bunch of no trade lists are, again, you're looking at Edmonton, Winnipeg, Dallas, and Denver or Colorado, because generally those teams have the worst fucking road schedules. Yeah, not just that they're cold, shitty places to be. It's that they're farther away from every other fucking market, so their travel is way fucking worse.
Jaromir Jagr made an extra $500,000 to play in Dallas because of their travel schedule. That was, he was in free agency late in his career, and that was what, he's like, well, I'll take
late
the extra.
in his ongoing career.
Fair enough. He'll be back.
The other thing,
but Phil's no trade, you mentioned it. He does have a modified no trade, so he has to give a bunch of teams. They didn't go out and say all of them, but TR hit Tampa Bay is on there, Arizona is on there. Places where if you don't want to wear pants, you don't have to wear pants ever again.
Especially at that stage or late in your career.
I mean,
guys, I did it in the minors, so I hurt my ankle, and I knew I was done from the NHL, and I shot it with cortisone. I was going to go somewhere. I went to Orlando. Yeah. Like, before that, where I
think it's in your book. You explained, you were like, I had a choice. I said, fuck it.
I was offered a good contract by Kalamazoo, Flint. I didn't want to fucking go there. They could have had a great chemistry, but at the point I was at, especially knowing that, I'm playing this last year just to get some experience out of hockey. Well, fuck, I'll play in the palm trees. But the other thing is, from what a lot of people that I played with, and a lot of people have that no trade. You just don't hear much about it. I mean, I think I might have even had, people just get it thrown in. But most people don't. It's just, that just gives you the option. Yeah. They're just happy that you got to come to me. Most people are totally open to it. Yeah. They just don't want to go totally against their will to some other fucking team. So having the no trade is like, okay, at least they got to come to me now. Yeah. But I think everybody other than like a small percentage knows that they might be traded.
I don't often hear of it being nixed, though. That's what I don't. Well, I don't like. Most of the time, it doesn't get public if someone nixes it.
That's the thing that I don't like. That's my offside here, is that the management more or less said, well, you know what? And with Pittsburgh, going with Phil Kessel was Jack Johnson. Yeah. A lot of people have a lot of opinions on Jack Johnson.
Yes, they do.
And I'm not talking about the singer-songwriter, and none of them are good. So essentially what Pittsburgh management has done by Jim Rutherford and co.
They said, you still have Jack Johnson, and it's Phil Kessel's fault.
Well, essentially, it's like a prison warden sending a message, or it's literally like he's lining them up and putting crosshairs. It's like, okay, well, if it comes to October 5th and number 81 is in the lineup, well, no, I don't even fucking know what number Jack Johnson wears, but he's there too, and it's this guy's fault. Yeah, I think that's a stone's throw at a guy who won 2 cups for you. Yeah. I understand.
And Phil Kessel's been a solid guy for the Penguins, right?
In my opinion,
and he wants to stay there.
The writers,
he likes the team. He wants to stay put.
In my opinion, those who get a vote on the Conn Smythe robbed Phil Kessel of a Conn Smythe. I think that first cup that they beat San Jose, Phil Kessel could have.
Yeah, I think so too.
I feel that
who got it was
Sidney Crosby.
Yeah,
so I mean, it's hard to take away something from Crosby. But when you look at the numbers,
did he already have a Conn Smythe? Did he win at the first?
No, that was Evgeny Malkin had it.
Right. Okay.
But in my opinion, when you look at it, I honestly think that given the situation of Phil Kessel being in Toronto and being, we'll say, abrasive for years on those people who do have a vote and things like that, I honestly feel that there's some, and you don't have to be a fucking rocket scientist to figure out which guys would do it either. I mean, you had one guy with TSN who pretty much spent the whole day in his column upset because Phil told him to get out of his stall. Yeah. I mean, so I just don't like that. I think that, and I know that Pittsburgh did not sign this no trade, but you can't go out and hang a guy while you're trying to trade.
But the other thing is it's one of those, you know what you got. So you got a guy with a no trade clause. You know when you traded for him that he waived that no trade clause to come to you, but that holds that no trade clause. So you know when you're getting him, you've got a no trade clause, and if you want to move him, you might have trouble because he's got a fucking no trade clause.
With the
so
CBA
you know you got that coming in.
With the CBA coming, I can see this kind of being a little bit of a narrative going on that, okay, well, they're going to try to push, the owners are going to try to push that, once a player has waived a trade clause, it's waived, and I just don't like that vibe.
I don't like it. I don't like it at all.
Not even because some people don't have to go.
Because again, it's what TR's saying. It's that it's not because they want to nix it every time. It's that, and that's the biggest problem I find the NHL has.
You don't get woken up in the middle of the night.
It's also the biggest problem that the NHL has is they're very much a squeaky wheel kind of organization where all the offsides in the history of the NHL that aren't a problem go on, like all these times it happens, and then Matt Duchene goes offsides, and now we got a stupid fucking replay rule. There's this fucking hand pass, and there's gonna be shit talked about that because it happened and it was bad.
Yeah,
and this year, the officiating's been we talked about it a bunch, but it's been fucking atrocious, and all these things, and so they're gonna react to those things, ignoring the fact that for years it's been fine, and now all of a sudden it happens this one time. It gets all this attention on fucking Twitter or all this attention on fucking all the different sports talk shows and all these fucking podcasts with three guys in a basement, all this shit going on. And it gets all this discussion. And so then they're like, okay, well, we're going to have to address this and change it. And so that's it. All the guys that you never hear about waiving the no trade, Phil Kessel won't waive his no trade, and it's going to become a point of contention in the fucking CBA.
There are a couple of people that have axed no trades, but the Matt Sundin being probably the biggest one I can think of, and as well as the rest of the team at the time. Darcy Tucker wouldn't waive his, Brian McCabe, all those guys. A lot of people say that held the Leafs back for a long time. But there is actually GM and ownership meetings coming up in Arizona, I think, in the next couple of weeks.
Of course,
and the offside thing is going to be spoken about. I think Gary Bettman has an interview before Game 1 today where I see what you're doing with your hand, but I actually like Gary a bit. Bill Daly is the guy I have a beef with. There is going to be some media availability of him this evening before Game 1 where he talks on all that. I'm going to leave you with a fun. We all took turns dunking on Edmonton here with the trade talk, but I think it was. I don't know if I get the player right here, but I'm pretty sure it was Eddie Olchuk who was getting traded while his wife was in labor. And his wife is just saying, please. So he's like, I've got bad news. We've been traded. And all she is screaming to him is, please tell me it's not Edmonton. Please tell me it's not Edmonton. Please tell me it's not Edmonton. And it was Edmonton. Of course, he had a great time there. If you remember the clips when the Jets left the first time, he's the guy that yelled, when this kid wins the cup, it's coming back to Winnipeg. So sometimes you get traded to Winnipeg and it works out all right.
Yeah, I think knowing my personality and where I would have fallen, I mean, even if I'd stayed in the NHL, it's not like I would have been a superstar. So knowing, like, that didn't really bother me, but I totally understand why someone wouldn't want, like, if I played on Winnipeg and I heard one of my buddies didn't want to come play, especially if he was late in his career, and I'd chalk it up to cold. Like, it's cold, and it's not down there, and I don't think it's usually anything more than that, because man, do they get fans. Holy shit, man. We were in Winnipeg last summer, and it was fucking madness for the Jets. But, same thing with Edmonton or Calgary or whatever. I mean, I'd play there. We're all, I guess, from Canada. Not we're all, but a lot of us that are.
Yeah, and I think that's a different thing. Phil Kessel is an American.
Yeah.
So, in Minnesota, the weather is Canadian, but it's also that little bit of a microcosm. Like, Phil Kessel played for Toronto. He clearly didn't have a good fucking time. No, you don't have to be a genius. So you trade him to what a lot of people would consider America's version of Toronto, where hockey is everything. I mean, they haven't had a decent football team in a very long time. I don't know if my brother's listening, but I'm sorry. You know it. I know it. So maybe that's another thing where he just doesn't want to go to. But then again,
he's from Madison, Wisconsin. It's like it's essentially a homecoming to send him to Minnesota.
Well, maybe you don't want. Well,
maybe,
you don't want to go home.
And maybe that's
maybe it'll happen. The other side of it is that when this gets public, it bothers me a little bit because
same. That was my offside.
Guys, do you know how many times I've heard that? Like, I don't want to sell guys out. I don't know if they want their business being known, but I don't know how many times guys like you practice would end. Brad, say Brown, and I, and Matt Higgins, and some ex-player, not ex-player,
mystery guest,
mystery player. We say we'd all go out and you'd shower, and then on the way, and someone might say, "Oh yeah, fuck, Reggie brought up trading me, but I got that no wave, I don't know what I'm gonna do." And that was as much news as it was. Like, a lot of people had that happen to them. It's just, it never really it wasn't even really news at times.
Yeah.
Like, you know, the way it seems now is that like you hear about that like once a year, so you think that it's some crazy thing because oh my God, like this got to this point. I'd say every year that happens half a dozen times on each team.
I would honestly think if you're not making a phone call, if you're an NHL GM and you're not making a phone call a week,
it comes up.
And for trade talks once a week.
Yeah, and people ask for guys with no trades.
Unless you're on some sort of fucking crazy win streak like Tampa Bay and Columbus had a few years ago, or Columbus this year and Tampa Bay last year. But at least once a week, like that's part of your fucking job.
Guys, there's often, I'll tell you one guy, remember, like often if a GM is, depends, I guess your opinion of this, but like often a GM will call the guy in, especially if it's a business, right? So if the guy's respected, especially if he's been there a while, you call him in and go, listen, you know, what do you think about this? Now, this is what I'm offered. Now, I'm just saying, for us, it's a decent deal. For you, wow, you got this spot. You might play a little bit more. Like right now, we got 3 prospects coming up in your position. It's often a conversation.
Yeah.
It's not like go fuck yourself. But a lot of the time, people take it like that.
I wouldn't like it. I got to tell. I'm a man with a lot of anxiety, and I think if a GM called me and was like, "They're offering me this," I'm a little bit like George Costanza. I'd be like, "I can't compete with that."
Yeah.
But what you are often when you think about it, you're not thinking of the situation. There's always something that can be improved. For Kessel being close to home, that's one thing, right? But it's where you are on the depth chart. It's weather. It's contract terms. We're only going to give you a 2. I think they're going to give you a 5. And the reason is because we got these prospects coming in. Now, you can stay here. I'm not going to guarantee you your 4th year you're going to be on the team. You might be in the minors. You're 33 now. But on this team, you might be able to play that 4th year. Now, what do you want to do? That often happens. And everybody has a situation, no matter what situation they're in, that something else might be more intriguing. And if it's worth their while, the
Grass
GM will
is greener.
Yeah, the grass will GM will call you. And it often, like in the case of, I don't know, top of my head, Mark Stone. I don't know.
Yep.
He just played in Ottawa. Clearly, they liked him. I mean, I know the team's a bit of a mess, but they liked him. He could score. Good guy and everything.
Didn't like to pay people, though.
They probably, But, you know, who knows how that went down. But Vegas was clearly a better situation. And, you know, maybe he was, maybe Ottawa's a bad example.
Yeah,
but
we love to dunk on the Sens on this program.
I'm just thinking, you know, that's one example that it probably helped both teams for him to change his scenery and be where he is, and a lot of times that happens.
It's gonna help the Leafs too because they got to trade a defenseman, and I think my pinned tweet right now is "Don't at me until the Leafs acquire Colin Miller."
I think that is still your
tweet, man,
and it's been your pin tweet for a while.
It's been my since I think January, since before the Muzzin trade. Honestly, you'll probably hear me from here.
You're not allowed to be talking about this, by the way.
Oh, is that
because you swore you wouldn't?
Yeah, I had to get a hobby. I had to keep busy.
But yeah, it's also something that's just fascinating about, you know, it's, to me, I think there's a couple reasons when you talk about the payday for athletes that some people, you know, depending on the league and depending on the salary caps and all these kinds of things, but the lack of longevity in a career and the health risks that you're taking on and the public persona and the fact that you can get fucking traded and your life can be uprooted and you can be sent around is one of the reasons that you get the money that you do.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and so it's just like
that's fair.
I think it's part of the it's part of the like the lack of security in that way, both like I said in terms of health and in terms of, you know, your abilities and all these things.
Your average career is less than 5 years.
Yeah, to me it goes. I think
that's why you get paid. That's why you get the hefty.
So
payday.
if you can get 2 extra years out of it somewhere,
exactly.
The average NHL career, I believe, is measured in games. Is it not? It's not fair to measure it in years. My thing on that is these guys are getting paid so much because the league and owners are making so much money. You are never going to hear me in my entire life sit down and say, well, let's use Braden Point as an example. Braden Point is a restricted free agent this summer. He's a center. He's got, what is he? He's 61 points on the year, 71 points. Had a great year. Yeah. RFA. Great year. Yeah. RFA, a lot of people say is, you know, size and this and that, or knock on him, and they don't want to pay him $10 million. They're saying, oh, if you pay him $10 million, that's too much. You are never going to hear me say that's too much. When this ownership conglomerate can go out and fucking spend $1 million to dye a river blue for a fucking publicity shoot, and they can't pay a center $10 million, you're never going to hear me say it. Someone's making the money. Shouldn't it be the players that are fucking filling the seats.
Oh, I totally agree. That just comes down to cap for me.
Well, yeah, the cap is that's the. But these teams fucking employ magicians to. Everyone talks about Toronto's cap trouble. They didn't even put Nathan Horton's hit on the LTIR this year. There's magicians to get outside of the cap, unless you really fuck up and you're paying a buyout on Ilya Kovalchuk for the next 5 years. Hello, LA.
Oh yeah, I just mean, I don't feel bad for any owner or anything from. And I remember Bob Goodenow was head of the NHLPA, and I remember him talking to us in the room, and he's like, the point was that they make a lot of more money. He said, you guys are rich and they're wealthy. I remember him saying that. And saying, in each situation, they're trying to tell us, explain to us that, you guys are seeing this revenue, but you're not necessarily seeing the jersey revenue. And all these jerseys with, say, Saku Koivu's name on them can't really be tracked. And
fuck. You guys weren't seeing any escrow back then, were you?
No, there was all kinds of differences. So, like, we had lots of meetings with the NHLPA. And Goodenow would just come around. Like, I didn't really give a fuck much about it. I was more worried about keeping my job or getting a job. But, so... all that I figured would come in time, but I did pay attention. We had a player rep, Stefan Quintal, that would go to the meetings and come back and talk to us. But for me, I never worry. It's just like this thing that the Leafs got going on now with Matthews and Marner. If they don't get Marner, then I think little things like maybe I would have taken less if I was Matthews. Or remember Paul Kariya and Teemu Selanne? It didn't work out for them, but they played on Colorado and they both took
1 years.
Hit.
They took one. They both took 1 years. I think Colorado got bounced in the first round.
I think they did
too.
It's things like that. I'm surprised don't happen more. I love
my favorite thing is Brendan Shanahan last year in the media told them they're all gonna have to buckle up and take pay cuts like he did on the Detroit Red Wings and all those when Detroit went out and bought a bunch of stars. But when you go look at their salaries, Shanahan himself was making $12.6 in 2002 or something.
But here's what's also fucked about that shit.
Player contracts are actually like what they get paid now are so low compared to before that first lockout. No, definitely.
Brendan Shanahan didn't make $12 million a year. Look it up. If Brendan Shanahan made 3/4 of that, I'm gonna fucking eat my shoe right now. You're saying he made $12.6 million in one season 20 years ago? Nope.
Here's what's also fucked about that. While you guys were chatting, I took a little look. Brendan Shanahan, I'm looking up Cap Friendly right now.
Yeah, there's nothing Cap Friendly because there was no cap back then.
Yeah,
guys, if you can produce any number that's close to that, like I said, I'm going to eat my shoe on Instagram right now.
His salary, I'm looking here, the peak salary I've got is nowhere near what
it's
you're talking
not anywhere
no, total
near.
salary. Total salary, the most I'm seeing is in 02, 03, he made $7 million.
Okay, not even just over half. I'm surprised he even made 7, but still not 12.6. It's a huge difference.
Yeah, no, that's not.
Paul Kariya was the guy with the $12 million contract. I'm thinking of.
Paul Kariya took 1.8 though with Colorado that
year.
Year.
For fuck's sakes, there was one
year
that
was just a numbers thing. Paul Kariya didn't get 12. Paul Kariya that must have been something to do with fitting in with the 1.8 because I'm telling you, nobody back then got that money. Nobody. Gretzky didn't get that money.
He went from 10 in he had been making 10 from 99 2000. He did that for up until 03, and then on 03 04 he took 1.2.
Yeah.
So he took a drop. One thing that was super.
But wait, you're telling me that Paul Kariya made $10 million in one season back then?
4 seasons, 4 consecutive years.
Sergei Fedorov
from
made
99
20
2000 to 2000.
If Fedorov made 20 in a season, it's something to do that I don't know about accounting. No one signed for $20 million in the NHL
no, it was
in a year.
bonuses, I think.
Yeah, okay.
No, it was an
bonuses.
offer sheet botched. It was an offer sheet botch. Yeah, that's one of my trivia
I
facts.
can see the ownership shit. And was Korea's like back-ended or something?
No. Base total salary. Base salary and total salary 97-98. Sergei Fedorov made $28 million.
Yeah, okay, that's an accounting thing.
He played 20 games too. He played a hilarious
an accounting thing.
low.
Bonuses and everything. I'm not counting that. I don't know.
No, but it's saying his base salary was $28 million.
Yeah, his base. Yeah,
I simply don't believe you.
I'm just going by what's there.
We are just stating facts.
But what I find super interesting.
I don't get it, but there's a twist to it, isn't there? There's got to be a twist to that. I don't know what it is because I'm not an accountant. I'm an idiot. I failed math.
But the thing that's happening is, like Chuck said, that was one where some team fucking off. I can't remember the details. Carolina offer sheeted him, and he was still on the wings, and they matched.
Yeah. The Wings match.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so that's
he
what
didn't-
happened.
Yeah, exactly. But he didn't sign with one team for $28 million
He signed
for
with
the season.
He signed with the Wings for $28 million. Is Carolina sent a $28 million offer sheet? The
I'm
Wings.
gonna have to dissect this and get
The
back.
Wings then matched that offer sheet and said, okay, if they're going to pay you, if they want to pay you $28 million, we will also pay you $28 million. And he signed. And the Wings
How
paid
many years for one season?
One
One season. He made the cherry on top tier. Carolina, he did make a bonus on this season. Carolina offered $10 million if they made it to the conference finals, which was a long shot. But because he signed the contract with Carolina, Detroit had to offer it. They made the finals. They had to pay him $38 million.
I get that they had to do that.
That's fucked.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Here's something
But I still don't. I'm waiting for another catch.
I'm gonna send. I'll send you the article here.
All right. But here's the other thing that I find super interesting as all this conversation has been ongoing. I checked out some expansion numbers, just in terms of like, the overall cost we were talking about, like what owners have to pay and all this kind of shit. Generally speaking, based on what we're looking at, salaries have gone up a bit, and but there's a cap and all that stuff now. In 1990, when the San Jose Sharks entered the league, they paid a $45 million expansion fee. The Minnesota Wild and Columbus Blue Jackets each paid $80 million. The Vegas Golden Knights just paid $500 million. That's the and that's the next round.
Okay, you gave me a look a minute ago when I said I actually like Gary Bettman.
Yeah.
This is why I actually like Gary Bettman. He's built the league to actually not be a joke or a garage league or something like that. Can you 1990 San Jose $45 million?
And I mean that was also
that
was also a clusterfuck though.
You'd have fellas down at fucking the golf, like the Ballyhaley here.
But the other thing is that the expansion fee for San Jose was a little bit different because it was a botched relocation.
Oh,
that was the owners
who was
of
supposed to relocate?
the North Stars. The North Stars were supposed to relocate. It didn't get approved. What ended up happening was they sold the team, kept them in Minnesota for like a fucking year, and then the guys who had previously owned the North Stars were given an expansion team, and there was also this weird expansion draft where they're the only other team besides the Knights who had that, but they were tied in that they could take half that fucking North Stars roster.
What a fucking Bush League move. See what I mean?
Yeah, it's nuts.
I think pre-Gary Bettman, the NHL sold the fucking New York Islanders to a guy that wasn't worth a cent.
Yeah, lots of things happened.
I'm still trying to research. I can't believe that. I honestly can't. I'm trying to figure out what. So you're telling me that in my lifetime, you see the offers like this year. You see, Austin Matthews signs for 12.8. So it came across the TV. Sergei Fedorov signed for $28 million in 1 year. I don't believe it.
Oh, it was a huge holdout. It ended ridiculous because he only played 20 games that year.
But it had to be something out. There had to be some other catch to that. What? They just give him double what everybody else got. Triple, quadruple.
All right, well, he was
Paul Correa did get 10. That kind of surprised me. But he's the top three.
Player contracts for the Stars. Now, not for the bottom feeders and not for the low guys. I shouldn't say bottom feeders. That's rude. Not for the character grit guys, but player contracts Stars wise has receded
I get it,
a bit.
$28 million in 1 year, 20 years ago.
That's an anomaly. That's an anomaly.
Wasn't.
So, however,
I got a paragraph on it here.
Darius Kasparaitis signed, I
Tell
think,
me,
a 6 1 year. I think
there's an asterisk.
There's I'm just trying.
Yeah, but I thought Kasparaitis was good. You don't like? I did. He was fucking take your knees out, man.
So I don't know if that's good, Terry.
Well, how many games does he have?
He's got a lot. He does have, but this is
all I'm saying is that when I talk to people in the NHL,
twilight of his, this is like signing. He might have been 36 when he signed it.
Yeah.
Okay.
This was the twilight of his career.
So this happened. It was basically, it said it was payback for. I'll look and tell you what it was supposedly payback for. But just to read what's going on is that Carolina in February 1998. So Fedorov hadn't played up to this point.
It was a long holdout.
He was holding out.
I remember all that.
In February 1998, Carolina tendered Red Wing center Sergei Fedorov an offer sheet that would have paid him $38 million over 6 years, including a $14 million signing bonus and another $12 million bonus if the team reached the conference finals. Since the Hurricanes sat last in the Northeast Division, they were at little risk of having to pony up the $12 million. To keep Fedorov, however, Ilitch whose Wings had the second best record in the league, had to match the offer. Detroit won the cup and paid Fedorov $28 million over a 4-month span.
Yeah, I get that.
Illich
but
was livid at the Fedorov power play, and while he won't discuss his relationship with Karmanos, the cup final is clearly stirring up bile in the boardroom. If there's acrimony between us, says Karmanos, we share it equally.
Well, first of all, I'm in no position to say anything about bonuses or asterisks like that. That's not what I meant. I figured there'd be something to it. I've been puzzled since you said that 10 minutes ago, and now that just answered the question.
Yeah.
It's not like he fucking fit like his salary that season for the year was $28 million, and Yzerman was like second with $9 million.
Yeah. No,
that wouldn't make any sense.
No, what weirds me out is that it was 38 over 6 years, and matching it, they paid him 28 over 4. That's the part I don't understand.
Wow.
I don't think he played all those 4 years.
There's more. You know what? There's more loopholes to that than we can even understand. I bet.
One thing on Fedorov though, we know he spent every cent.
Yeah. Yeah, so it was all bonuses and shit they paid him. So he paid,
that was how contracts.
They paid him $28 million for 43 total games.
Yeah.
And it's the largest single season amount paid to an NHL player ever. He did lead the playoffs in goals and helped them score with their second consecutive Stanley Cup. And that's the other thing. He held out like that as a reigning cup.
Yeah. One thing I'm gonna
people, man. That's why I like this Pasternak thing, where someone was talking to Pasternak today during like media availability or some shit, and they were asking him about like, oh, but like this, and you're gonna be you're coming up on a new comp, whatever it was, and he's just like, I don't play hockey for the money, man. That was his response, and I fucking loved it.
One thing I'm going to say about that is this is before the salary cap era where it was the fucking Wild West, and honestly, I think if Mike Ilitch had to round up $28 million, it's like me flipping the couch cushions when I lived in Fredericton looking for a fucking $5 to get a $5 hot and ready.
But at the time it did that, the expansion fee to get into the league was $80 million. Like, Sergei Fedorov could have saved up for a couple seasons and bought a fucking franchise.
Oh, yeah. Sergei Fedorov didn't.
Well, no.
Sergei Fedorov didn't save up, buddy.
I know, but still.
Geez, I guess, where was I even going with that? We've been in an abyss for 15 minutes. I guess I was getting to the Braden Point thing.
Oh, right, Point.
Okay.
That's what I was commenting on.
The point was Point,
like,
right.
If he gets, it's like Marner. Like, these guys are going to, to me, I hope they make $100 million, but it's just under the cap. And there's that, now the whole concept of team and unselfishness and everything raises its fucking head again, right? When in that, and I'm with fucking Pasternak if he said that.
Yeah.
It wouldn't matter. It clearly didn't. I signed for a lot less money, and now I'm playing shinny and doing this podcast. Hopefully, sell some T-shirts with a regular job. You know what I mean? Like, so if it did, I probably wouldn't be sitting here now.
Yeah, I mean, Point is currently he's a
RFA.
He's an RFA, and his total salary this past season, it was $650,000.
Never keep it going with the price of fuel.
No,
suits and gas, man. That's all that pays
so
for.
he's likely gonna do.
He's gonna do all right.
He's gonna do all right, considering he just had a 92-point season.
No sweat adding 2 zeros at the end of that.
Oh yeah, no, totally.
No sweat.
Well,
that's a deal then.
So, boys, do we have anything else to talk about? So,
you want to talk about
the guest that we had? Yeah, I can't get a hold of him. I don't have his fucking number, so this puts us in a bad position. But we have been talking for like 2 hours.
So let's talk about one last topic, and then we'll go and I'll go watch the Bruins game.
Sounds good.
All right.
And
I'd say we just talked. I was going to call Senior for one, but that's going to take us for an hour.
Yeah.
So we might as well just finish, and we'll advertise it, mystery guest, whatever we're going to do.
All right, that's what we're going to do. It's going to be fun. But the thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to say, hey, TR, what do you think about Drake? And I'm going to stand back. I know this is a hockey podcast, and some people are going to be like, oh, I thought this was a fucking hockey podcast. But this,
we just gave you 3 hours, man.
We got to fucking talk about this fucking guy.
I will, but the thing is, even largely because I'm so vocal about part of it, nobody that's gotten back to me is getting my whole scope of what I'm saying, so I'll explain it. When I say getting back to me, I'm talking about Twitter. I put out a comment on Twitter the other day. You know what? I'm going to fucking read it out.
Please do.
I'll read it out. Now, I went over the topic
I put
first.
one on Twitter, too, and I'll read that out after.
I don't think I'm allowed to read mine out on Twitter. It's about Drake and his habits on Instagram and sliding into the DMs of 16-year-olds. And people are madder about him at a basketball game than that.
Yeah, that's
Well, this is the thing, but I'm not, like, Okay.
You can rub anyone's shoulders, Drake, as long as they're 18, okay?
The the original tweet said, "Love the rap story, but don't encourage Drake." And then a picture of a camera. Get the camera off him. You're feeding the baby candy by giving him attention. This guy's embarrassing himself, the sport, and the nation, which is too far. Probably didn't embarrass the nation. It ain't about you, Drake. Sit down and let the team enjoy this royal ride. We the North. So hashtag We the North. So I went on, and there's go back and forth with some people.
You use the hashtag. That's why they're fucking flaming you too.
Yeah, but I don't understand. So a lot of people's response was, "What? He can't be a passionate fan?" But I'm a passionate fan.
Yeah.
And I'm hashtagging We the North because I disagree. Doesn't mean I don't fucking like the Raptors.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not questioning. Okay, I'll get right into it here. I'm not questioning his passion. You should see. Just read the replies back to me. I'll read you one today.
Yeah, there's a couple.
There's a couple hot ones there.
I'll give you one, but they're all flawed. Like I don't.
He's not technically, and this is the one thing that I will give, and I don't like to pull water for Drake because of his tendencies, but he's technically employed by the team.
But again,
the team's
just let me finish my fucking point first, because we're all I again haven't gotten to my point yet.
Yeah.
Now here's another. So here's the response today: Is Drake really in the wrong for having a vision and some passion for his home team? Again,
a vision.
A vision.
But listen, these are the kind of. I didn't say he's in the wrong for having passion.
No.
I never once said he was wrong for having passion. A lot of players have passion. Now listen, this is where it fucking crosses a line for me. He comes down, okay, he's doing things like massaging Nick Nurse's shoulders. He's jumping around the sidelines. What's the Giannis? I can't even pronounce his last name. I watch a lot of basketball. Antetokounmpo, whatever it is. He's arguably one of the best players in the NBA, clearly their best player. And he throws a lot of shitty free throws. He's not a great free throw percentage. I don't know what it was in the series, but just overall, I guess. So he threw an air ball once. During the series, he threw a couple, but like fucking Drake's looking there, and he starts mocking him physically, and then he's giving the media quotes.
That's where I jumped in. That was my thing.
So now listen. Yeah. So what I'm saying is that I'm passion. Yes, we all watch with passion. People are going, well, he's just a fan. No, he's not just a fan, though. I don't care if they employ him to do his fucking thing with the training facilities and whatever, and he wants to. If he could, he'd fucking be a player. He'd be an extra. I mean, he's a super fan. I love that. But people are like, well, he's employed by the team. A lot of that's his own fucking doing. It's not like he's the fucking owner. And even if he is, you don't give the other team fodder. It's totally selfish. This guy Drake gets enough fucking attention, and I know he's glowing in the spotlight, and it's starting, and people go, well, he doesn't need the attention. Well, I know.
But
that's
fucking
the point.
wants it.
But he wants it. So why would you, if I'm going to give fodder to the other team, I would feel very, very uncomfortable if I'm Drake. Like I'm there, and all of a sudden, he's mocking physically Giannis's shots. I mean, I'm going to come back and say that, and that's whiteboard material.
Whiteboard material,
right? You're interfering when you selfishly put yourself in the line of fire. Who the fuck are you to comment on anything? If I'm Kawhi Leonard, if I'm Danny Green, if I'm Pascal Siakam, if I'm any of those guys, I'm saying sit down and shut the fuck up.
Here's my thought on all of this shit.
Yeah.
Is that everything goes on and Giannis fucking fouls out and Drake chirps him and waves goodbye and shit like this to him. Here's my fucking thing. If Drake cares that much about going and watching the Raptors play basketball, he goes to Milwaukee for Game 5. He can afford some fucking...
There's the curse, man. He can't go to Game 5. There's the Drake curse.
But my whole fucking point is, instead of doing that, what does he do? He sets up and puts gets on stage at Jurassic Park and has 10,000 people watch him watch the fucking game.
That's what I didn't like. That's a lot of whiteboard material to me, and I feel if you're you got to be a player to do that. If you want to put a big target like that, you should probably be playing the game. I also really didn't like and hey, you could dig up 1,000 tweets about me I like Drake's music.
Yeah.
Before I knew he was a fucking Instagram.
Yeah. Anyway,
but I don't like that, and I really didn't like the effect that there's television producers who are definitely in headsets going, camera 3 to Drake, camera 3, give me Drake, camera 3.
There's a guy in that game that's not even camera 3 to Drake. It's just cut to camera 3 because camera 3's on fucking Drake. One guy's job is to just keep Drake in focus the whole fucking night. And I thought
about my high school gym teacher was one of the very few big basketball fans that I knew in a hockey, like from a long time ago in a hockey country. And I thought, like, Jesus, I'm going to call him by name. I know his son listens. What would Bill Soper think of this? Well, he's been watching the Raptors since they've came into the league, and I'm sure he's got an opinion on the fact that, like, 20% of the network coverage in the most important games of franchise history are on a fan freaking out.
And here's the comparisons I hear. I hear people talk about Spike Lee or Jack Nicholson.
Spike Lee tried to fight a guy.
But first of all, go ahead. Wait, make your point. Now I want to make a point.
All I was going to say is that every now and then they cut to Jack Nicholson at a Lakers game watching the game. It's not like Jack is like, and I mean,
if he got up and taunted players and mocked someone's shot, I would say the same thing.
If he was fucking like massaging Phil Jackson, we'd have problems. Like we'd be saying the same shit. Like, Jack, like, I get you're fucking, sit down.
I would have a lot of questions if Jack Nicholson was massaging.
I mean, there's a whole bunch of shit. There's a whole bunch of shit like that. But
the noises he'd make too.
And I mean, Spike Lee, like you said, like Spike Lee's fucking gone
off.
Reggie Miller fucking went off, right?
Guys, Spike Lee is exactly what the fuck I'm talking about. People are like, well, Spike Lee does it. I didn't like that either.
Yeah.
And he pissed off Scottie Pippen. You look at YouTube sometimes, Scottie Pippen fucking went in and got riled up. And like I said, whiteboard material. Yeah. Scottie Pippen scores. I can't remember the game who they were playing. Obviously, they were playing the Knicks. But I can't remember like what year the game was. Yeah. It was the Bulls. It was Pippen there. Jordan must have been there. But anyway, Pippen goes and dunks and goes right in his face and points at him and says, sit down and shut up. And that right there, if that's an example of fucking Pippen getting fired up because some fucking fan, and I'm saying the same thing with Drake. I love that they're passionate, boys. If I was at that game, I'd be shotgunning beers and being fucking pumped and cheering for the Raptors. But exactly, I'd be cheering for the Raptors. I wouldn't want the camera in my face. When I say me, I guess if I'm Drake, I'm nobody. But you know what I'm saying. When you're interfering with the play and you're giving the other team fodder and material to use, I think that you're being selfish, and that's all I'm saying. Yeah, he's a fan. He's a passionate fan. I like that part of it. I'm proud we got Drake. It's a great thing to have somebody like as big worldwide and such a guy that could be an ambassador for your league and your team. But not when he acts like that. Well, that's selfish.
The one thing that I was hardlined against was what Mike brought it up, that he's on stage with a microphone for game. He made a lot of
Game 5.
Made a lot of comments at Game 5, and I'm like, well, shit.
And
I'm printing that off.
I think he said something like, "We did this. This is what we did." Like, what the fuck did you do?
Well, I'll give credit where credit due. He did actually do a lot of work growing that team.
Yeah, but
for a media standpoint and all that
stuff.
It's
not we though.
No,
I don't give a fuck.
He's
it's
not playing.
I mean,
he
wants to say we.
He's not playing. That's the thing. You should not be. You should not be the fellow. Like, in my opinion,
I mean, I think we're all guilty of. I think we're all guilty of saying we about our favorite team, and Terry's the only one of us that's actually in a position to fucking do it.
The royal we, but that's a big Lebowski joke.
But you know what? I
made it this far.
Yeah.
But my opinion is nobody should be putting a thumbtack in a quote in a locker room that's coming from your brand ambassador going into the finals. To me,
that's it.
That's too far.
That's
to
really
me, that's
all
too
it
far.
is to me.
If you take a thumb and you're putting whiteboard material on, and that's coming from who? The brand ambassador. Oh, let's flick on the Canada coverage of the game. Who are they showing on camera 3 all the time? The brand ambassador.
Yeah.
How are we going to beat the brand ambassador?
That
was my tweet. It was just like, because I missed the game the other night, and when I was done, I saw everybody blowing up. I was and all the fucking shit on Twitter. I just said, I missed the game. How many points did Drake get?
Yeah,
that's pretty good. Because apparently, according to everything, he was like, the biggest deal in the fucking.
That's it. So
I gotta give
it's the attention.
It's really not hard to define. No. Like, we could sit there, we could talk about this another 20 minutes. Yeah, but like I said to people, it's really not my point of view. Every single reply to me in the negative context was something that I knocked his passion. I love his passion. Yeah. It's not it at all. Lots of people are passionate. It
that's
doesn't
how
give
you manifest that passion.
It doesn't give you carte blanche to do whatever the fuck you want.
That's
right.
One thing to switch gears. Huge amount of respect for the city of Toronto and how they handled winning that game. 0 arrest, 0 damage in public. I've got some friends living there.
Great feeling right now.
Oh my Jesus! I got some friends living there. I know when the Habs went to the semifinals a few years back, and they upset the Washington Capitals and the Pittsburgh Penguins. There were a few people that used as an excuse to get drunk and beat a few things up. Yeah. And they're not hockey fans.
Well, I mean, look at
they're not hockey fans, and that was a win. However, I got a bunch of people sent me I guess videos and stuff like that of just the intersections outside of their apartments and their condos, and it was holy fuck.
And I mean, to do it on a Saturday night, too,
oh
right?
my god, to imagine, and my thing is like, wow, 0 arrest, 0 public damage and stuff like that. Especially, you know, a lot of people are a little bit upset in Ontario for one reason or another lately. Great job to everybody that enjoyed themselves on Saturday. I hope you get to do it many more times, at least 4 more times.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope so too. And I just want to, give all the people that are, basketball fans and like what Drake's doing. Just hope you enjoy writing down everything we just said and putting it on your fucking whiteboard.
Hey, I wish him the best. I'm going to keep watching. I'm huge fan of the Raptors, and not a huge fan of Drake, but I got nothing fucking against him until this happened. So, again, my point, don't put yourself in the fucking line of fire when you're not on the team and it's not your business.
I'd be fucking mortified to know the Bruins like had a whiteboard thing of me there. It's like, oh, we gotta get.
It's
that,
incredibly
we gotta
selfish.
get that fucking guy.
It's incredibly
we
selfish.
We gotta win Game 7 because of that loud mouth.
I don't think Steph Curry gives 2 fucks about Drake, and I think
they're probably friends. Rich people are all friends with one another. Mega celebrities.
Steph Curry just ran over his little brother to get to the fucking final. He doesn't give a fuck about Drake.
No, look,
what are they, the Espositos?
I just think, and you know what? As some of the people that responded on Twitter, I just got to say, you know what? You weren't in that position. I know I'd be fucking offended as a player. I don't know. I didn't play in the NBA. Professional athlete. I'm just telling you that anybody like that associated with my team, I'd be fucking pissed off. You're not on the team as much as you want to be. Help us out. Be on the booster club. Clap your fucking hands. Face front, though, and shut the fuck up.
Wear the Raptor suit. For once, I want to see the Raptor head come off of the Raptor suit, and it's Drake.
And it's
God
Drake.
damn it! That's all. Think of the GIF usage I'd get on that on Twitter.
But speaking of Twitter, here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna hit a button that plays an ad, and then we're gonna come back and we're gonna tell everybody how to follow us on Twitter, and then we're gonna say goodbye. Does that work for everybody?
That works.
Penny Posh, maternity wear reimagined, breaking the barriers of style, fit, and comfort that often leave mothers-to-be uninspired in their new wardrobe. Penny Posh's designs have reinvented a clothing category often seen as disposable, temporary, and unattractive. Well, not with Penny Posh. Check it out, a continuous fit maternity collection from bump to bundle and beyond. You can check them out on Twitter at Penny_Posh, on Instagram at PennyPosh_maternity, and of course on their website, www.pennyposhdesigns.com. Penny Posh Designs, maternity wear reimagined.
All right. So on all that, now that we've talked about Drake and we got that out of our system, and again, good luck to the Raps in the NBA Finals. It's so exciting to see him finally get there.
It only takes 4.
We're going to come back. We're going to shout at you about hockey, and well, more so hockey than basketball, hopefully, next week. So make sure to follow at 3MI Podcast on all your different stuff. You can find our shop, including the new Senior Doesn't Pay shirt that went up last week. That's all available at 3mipodcast.com.
Part of the Ken Reed line.
Part of the Ken Reed collection we got going now. Shirts that Ken suggested. Of course, thanks, Ken, for listening. I know you're probably listening right now. And in the meantime, like I said, you can follow the podcast at 3mipodcast.com. I'm on everything at Hickey, Mike.
I'm at Smokes Endorse.
I'm at Terry Ryan 20 on Twitter, at Terry Ryan 2020 on Instagram, and I will say I'm in Toronto all next week. I get there Saturday. I'm there for 10 days, June 1st to June 10th, for many different reasons. One of them is ball hockey, and if anybody wants to hit me up, shoot me a message. I got lots of buddies there that are listening.
Yeah, and pick up a copy of Tales of a First Round Nothing and get them to sign it for you. There you go.
Thank you.
Have a beer at the Dakota for me, would you?
Oh, I like that place.
Yeah, it's one of my one of my favorites.
I lived really not far from there, just a couple of summers ago when I was there all summer doing some work in many different fields. That's where I stayed, like maybe a 2-minute walk from that place.
Oh, fuck
gorgeous bar.
Yeah.
All right. Well, in the meantime, then we'll see you. We'll try to get you on the phone or something if you're out of town next week when we record. But in the meantime, we'll be back.
Call us from the Dakota, would you?
There we go.
There you go. I might even have some decent future guests with me, so who knows?
Oh. There we go. So yeah, in the meantime, we'll be back next week and we'll shout at you about hockey then. Until then, we've been Third Man In. Talk to you soon.
The worst crowd